Well, the New York Times puts out their great summer reading beach reads, and people can look it up. There's wonderful stuff if you want to read novels about rich people behaving badly. If you want to do the frothy summer romance, they have a whole list of all these books you can read. They also have this reading bucket list, this contest you can join, where you can follow their prompts. Number one, read a book published last year. And number two, you read a book in a genre you don't typically read. It's a whole long list. I won't get into it. But it kind of gets you excited about reading. They say, and I find this interesting, that remember everybody thought the Kindle came along, it was going to be the end of people reading books in book form. Well, that's not true. Most people are still reading books. Are
they? Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they are still reading books in
You mean like a hard copy book?
Yep,
Wow,
as opposed to Kindles. So they've held fast. But, one of these stories, and it's so true, that especially if you're having a hard time or you're depressed or there's a crisis in your life, reading a book, man, is a great escape from all that. And I think people forget about that. It's different to me than watching television or going to the movies or anything else. You can get engrossed in a book. I don't know if people like mysteries. There are certain mysteries I really like. Tana French, I'm a big fan of hers. She writes about things in Ireland. You just get
political thrillers are my deal.
Political thrillers. Yeah, I haven't read any of those in a long time. Which ones do you like?
I don't know. Now let me just say this. You said the escapism thing. There actually is a survey we saw this morning. 54% say TV is the best escape, but 33% coming in number 2 say reading. I also have some other data that I find to be interesting. What percentage of Americans admit they never read a book?
Oh, I forget what it said.
40%.
40%.
Okay, which means it's probably 50%. 27% say they read 1 for a year, and 13% say they read 5 to 9 a year. Where are you on that list?
I don't know. I'm not a huge reader because I have to read so much for work. But I do read. I do read books. I love to read books. I'm reading right now a Tanya French book. I just mentioned that people may know the Cal Hopper series. It's about this retired Chicago cop who moves to Ireland and he solves these crimes in the neighborhood. I just finished reading. This has been a huge book that got all these book clubs going. This a Belle Burden story, Strangers.
Oh, you told me about this.
Yeah. This is a book. I think it's been on the bestseller list for the last few weeks. Launched apparently 1,000 book groups and teaching modules. It's about this really wealthy woman, the granddaughter of Babe Paley, one of these, kind of waspy families, millions and millions of dollars. She marries this guy. They have this idyllic marriage. What are you laughing at?
Jamie, is this you? Of course. Does reading text messages from Jim at 5 a.m. count as reading books? The answer is yes, it does, actually, because there are many of them and they're long.
Well, anyway, I think more women are into this. I think more women are into books in general than men. But anyway,
you have no evidence of that, do you?
I think more women than read books than
men. But based on what?
Because I've read it that more women take books out of libraries.
Where'd you read that, Marjorie?
I read it. I read it yesterday in the National Enquirer. Anyway, so let me finish this Belle Burden. Belle Burden thing.
Yeah.
So it's this huge book because her husband walks out. They live this idyllic life. They have the big house in Martha's Vineyard, the big house in Manhattan. He seems like he's a wonderful guy. All of a sudden, he just says he's had it, he's leaving, and it's become a massive bestseller. She's kind of gotten even. He walked out on her. Now there's some question about whether she was really left destitute because she's about to inherit for millions from a trust fund. But in any case, it's kind of like when Nora Ephron, many years ago, people will remember Nora Ephron was married to Carl Bernstein, who was the Watergate reporter from the Washington Post. And when she was very pregnant, she discovered he was having an affair with Thelma. And she wrote a book called Heartburn.
That was so
which
fabulous.
Was a riot. So this is kind of, it's not humorous like Nora Ephron's was, but it's kind of apparently it's going to be made into a movie with Gwyneth Paltrow starring as the wronged wife. So 877-301-8970.
So before we get to the calls, where are you on the audiobook deal?
I think audiobooks are great.
Yeah, no. I didn't say they were great. Does that count as reading
in
your book? And by the way, not only does it count as reading, which I agree with you on, I read something this morning that it appeals, that's a wrong verb, to the same part of the brain and has the same impact on the brain as traditional reading
Well, you know
does.
what is interesting to me? I remember audiobooks better than I remember written books. I forget whole sections of written books, but I remember the audiobooks better. I think audiobooks are absolutely wonderful.
You know what I read yesterday, by the way? I read this thing that says more men are reading books than women, actually. Now, here are a couple of good texts. Amber in Worcester. I'm Gen X, and my God, I'd lose my mind if not for my books. I read it all. I even buy book-inspired candles from a small business in Minneapolis. I would literally take a day off from work just to light my candles, read all day, and recharge. Hey, text us again, Amber, and tell us the name of that business. Betsy in Somerville. I've just read the Iliad and the Odyssey in advance of the movie. They were terrific.
That's
Zoe, our
impressive.
coworkers.
I think who's Betsy should call back. Someone is reading the Odyssey. That a great actress is reading it in a audiobook because it advanced the movie. But
That's
I forget
nice.
where I saw that.
Now, Zoe, our coworker, said, I'm listening to the audiobook of the Odyssey right now so I can be accurate in my criticism of Chris Nolan. Cannot wait to hate watch with the biggest tub of popcorn. Definitely does not count as reading. Audiobooks are passive. Reading is active. That is, the last sentence is true, but why doesn't it count as reading? I mean,
it should count as reading. That's ridiculous. Zoe, text back and tell us who's reading the audiobook.
What are you reading right now before we get to the calls?
I just told you I'm reading a Tanya.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, Tanya French, the last one in the Cal Hooper series. It's a mystery to be solved over there in the Emerald Isle. Jim.
I'm reading Donald Trump's latest. It's called The Art of the Deal to End a Democracy. It's a chilling, it's a thriller, but you know the ending.
Did you mention AI stuff?
No.
One last thing.
Well, I did.
We should throw this in. This has become a big controversy because a lot of authors are now resorting to AI. As it's a show that precedes us. Some days I think it precedes us in the morning and maybe at night too. Interviewed this romance novelist who admitted that she now to churn out all these romance novels, AI is doing it for her. And when she admitted this,
Is this the Pulitzer Prize winner who was in the Times the other day, who admits that a lot of her ideas come. It's not just like copy editing kind of thing. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I don't like it. I think part of the reason you read is to get into the author's mind. Yeah. And listen to this. There was a big scandal. There's this literary magazine called Granta, Granta. It's a big deal. Yeah. If you get published in there, a big short story, you know, the winners. Yeah. Well, apparently they published a short story. One of their big winners this year turned out to be AI written, at least in part. And you know how they figured it out?
No.
Because there was a line in there. Listen to this. The girl smiled like sunrise over a sink.
Over a sink?
Over a sink.
And that made it into the... Wait, that made into the final
that's
thing?
That's odd. The girl smiled like sunrise over a sink. What does that mean? And then they deduced that, in fact, it was written by AI. Big scandal. The judges were fooled by AI. Jim.
Can I before we start, which we're really going to get to your calls in about 30 seconds here. You know what? I have a good piece of advice, if I say so myself. If you're having trouble getting back into reading and you really think it could be a good thing for you, particularly in these painful times, you know what gets you there? You just made me think of it. Short stories.
Short stories.
Short stories are really, if you get the right person, are really spectacular.
You're going to mention your favorite? The girls in their summer
dresses.
You're
the one who told me, that's Irwin Allen, right?
Yeah.
You're the one who told me about that about 25 years ago.
It's very
it is great.
Sad. It's
it's
great. It's very sexy, but it's very sad. The girls in their summer dresses. Let's go to Nick in Hartford. Hi, Nick.
Hello, Nick.
Hey there.
How are you?
So to Marjorie's point, men do really have the vibe of people that kind of tell you the gist of a book but haven't read it in general. You think of an Elon Musk type. There's no way that guy's reading anything. But as far as AI literature, all of that goes, my thoughts on this are the same with movies, music, any sort of art. If you are using this to generate everything, you are no longer an artist, an author. Just if you have the ability to write, that's what I'm paying you for, that's what I want.
Exactly.
And you can't be bothered to do it, then do something else. And to all these companies that insist that it's going to be necessary, it's useful, I really think they are underestimating my resolve to just go backwards. There are classics I haven't touched yet, and I will sooner read those than ever touch an AI story.
Nick, that was beautifully put. That was great.
Nick, what do you think of this line? Let me read you this line. Her hair is midnight rain. What do you think? Real or AI?
Oh, I don't know. It makes me smile like sunrise over a sink, I'll tell you that.
Exactly. It's another AI line from this guy's short story that got the big award. They were so embarrassed. The girls smiled like sunrise over a sink. Pretty bad.
Nick, thanks for the call.
By the way, I'm looking it up, Jim. Even the National Endowment for the Arts reports women read more than men in terms of books. You know what? I think there's a lot of like this sounds sexist, but I think there's a lot of like the love story things that women read more than men. Romance novels, women read more than men. I think generally speaking.
You know, the President of the United States has said on many occasions what his favorite book is. You know what it is, correct?
The Bible.
The Bible. How many times do you think he's read through the Bible?
I'm suspicious.
Really? Yeah.
Very suspicious. Hillary in Jamaica Plain, thank you for calling.
Hello, Hillary.
Hey, if you're looking for a summer read, an easy summer read, I'm not a big romance reader, but there's a new novel coming out that's getting a lot of press called Thighs Wide Shut by an author named Haley Fleming. She's young. It's her first book, and it got a star by Publishers Weekly last week.
What's it called
Wasn't
again?
that a Nicole Kidman movie, or am I?
That was Eyes Wide Shut.
No.
What did she say?
Eyes Wide Shut. It's called Thighs Wide Shut.
Oh, sorry.
And it takes place in Jamaica Plain.
Oh,
my God. Oh, well, we got to read
That's
that.
pretty
Are you
exciting.
related to this person by any chance, Hillary? Is this your novel?
No, I'm not. I've
Okay.
just seen it come up across my feed a couple times. I'm a big reader, but I don't read romances. But I'm going to read this one. I've already pre-ordered it.
Hey, Hillary, thanks for the recommendation.
Sidewise Shut.
You know that woman that texted a minute ago that said she orders these reading-related candles from Minneapolis? Betsy, is that the same person or is that a different person? I think it's the same person. The candle business is called Frostbread Studio.
Ooh.
They also have a
Ooh.
link to donate to those affected by the ice raid. So it's like a twofer kind of thing.
Now, Bob in Rehoboth texted, he's not exactly with the feel of this part of the show, Jim. He wants to know if the DraftKings Sportsbook counts.
It does. It does. And by the way, that's because he's a man, as you made clear a couple of minutes ago.
That's right. 877-301.
I know I wasn't supposed to talk about Trump.
Yeah.
But I'm watching behind you on CNN. I'll be brief and we'll move on. Trump holds cabinet meeting, and the cabinet meetings, if you haven't watched them, are fabulous because they walk around the room saying, how's the greatest... Either the New York Times or the Washington Post did a thing the other day where they summarized what percentage of what a cabinet member says in Trump's presence is praise of Trump. They analyzed the speaking patterns of every single cabinet member.
How great is that? He's the most wonderful person in the entire world. Yeah, that's what they say all the time.
Margot, you're in Hancock, New Hampshire, our favorite
Hi, Margot.
New Hampshire town. Hi, Margot. How are you?
Hi guys.
Hi.
I'm good.
Good.
So I may be addressing the wrong topic here, but I tuned in just as you were talking about audiobooks versus, reading hard copy.
Yeah.
And I'm the children's librarian here in Hancock.
Oh, great.
Oh, great.
I am constantly kind of addressing this with parents who feel like their kids are not getting what they should from audiobooks. And same with graphic novels. And not just my opinion, but the research supports that any of these are positive for adults or children. You're still accessing vocabulary. Mm-hmm. You're still accessing, language. You're still accessing literature. And it makes your brain think. I wouldn't say at all that audiobooks are a passive, activity at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, they're a wonderful thing, especially if you have to commute, Margot. How great is it to commute? You can look forward to your drive home or your drive to if you're reading listening to a book on the way. And I said before, I think I retain them for some reason better than when I read them.
Hey, so you're responsible for the Peeps diorama, Margot? You've told us that before, I assume?
Yes. Amy and I are both in charge of that, and it's a super, super fun.
We're going to come one year.
Library.
Margot, thanks for your call. Speaking of Hancock, New Hampshire, and her fellow resident, another great book, which I read for the first time when we started having on the show, Soul of an Octopus, which is one of Simon Montgomery's.
Simon Montgomery's got a whole
It was a finalist for the National
catalog.
Book Award, and it is just beautiful. About her relationship with an octopus at the aquarium right down the street here.
Yep. And there's another octopus book that was a novel that got a lot of acclaim, and I haven't read that one, but a lot of people love it. And by the way, it's Claire Danes. That's who narrates the Odyssey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's going to be a movie with Matt Damon, and I think she narrates the Emily Watson translation, but it's supposed to be really good. Jennifer from Mansfield, thank you for calling.
Hello, Jennifer.
Hello, I'm taking the extreme opposite position as your last caller, but I feel very strongly that reading and listening to an audiobook are not the same thing. I don't diss the audiobook. I think it's a wonderful experience, but it's a different experience. Two things that I'm pretty certain if you hook somebody up to an EEG and you monitor their brain activity, the electrical activity while they were reading versus while they were listening to a book, you'd see two entirely different brain processes there. And furthermore, I want to mention my daughter actually has a reading disability. And the only way for her to improve her reading is by actually reading more, not by listening to a story on an audiobook. I view the audiobook more as sitting around a campfire and telling stories. It is its own valuable thing. It's incredibly important, but it is not technically the same as reading.
But Jennifer, don't go away. There is a piece in the Harvard Gazette from March. Let me just read you a piece of this. It quotes this cognitive neuroscientist by the name of Nadine Gaab, G-A-A-B, and let me read her quote. There isn't much of a difference between the brain network for reading and the brain network for language comprehension. The brain area we call the letterbox, which processes print, is not as engaged when you listen, but it has been shown that when some people listen to words, they visualize them, so the letterbox gets activated as well. So for what it's worth, there's what an expert's take is. But thanks for yours. We appreciate it. Jennifer, thank you so much for the call.
Well, I also think it's about what are you reading books for? Are you reading books just for fun? Are you reading for entertainment? Are you reading to learn something? Are you reading history? I've often said a million times my older sister is probably the best read person I know.
She's
of
incredible.
Like history.
I know.
She reads enormous amount. She just finished that 1,200 page, I think it was 1,200, maybe it was 900 page, huge Mark Twain book by Ron Chernow. She reads all these history books. She must read. I mean, she's at the library all the time. She's like an honorary member of the library, and she probably reads 200 books a year. It's unbelievable.
Pretty great. Let's go to Caroline Nicole in Chicago. Hi, Caroline Nicole. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're very well, thank you. What's up?
I'm actually from Boston.
Oh.
I'm a transplant.
Sorry.
No worries. I actually manage a book club called EC Book Babe.
Oh, great. Tell us about it.
And I know, certainly. So we predominantly offer this community of women of all ages, all backgrounds. It originally started just for the East Boston community, but we've opened it up due to popularity to the surrounding areas.
How do people find it? How do people find it?
So we're online. We use a platform called Book Club. Mm-hmm. We have our website. We have our social media presence.
What's the website?
It's ecbookbabes.com.
ecbookbabes.com. That's great. Caroline
Hey,
Nicole,
thank you.
thanks for calling. We appreciate it. Sorry you left town.
A lot of people are texting about Elizabeth Strauss' new book, The Things We Never Say, which is supposed to be really good. She wrote Olive Kittredge and the Burgess Boys and Amy and Isabel. She's really good. Olive Kittredge is up a Maine kind of thing. Somebody just texted Jim. I'm not sure if this is a compliment or an insult.
Go ahead.
Marjorie's smile is like a sunrise over a sink.
That's lovely. That's actually
I don't
quite
know.
beautiful.
I don't know. I think it could be not. And apparently we said it wrong. It's not. It's Irwin Shaw, not Irwin Allen, that wrote The Girls in Their Summer Dresses.
Oh, it is Irwin Shaw. That's right.
Yeah,
I'm
Jim's
sorry.
favorite short story of all
Recommended by Marjorie Egan. I should
that's
say
right.
many years ago.
It's a really good short story. Well, the classic for older people like ourselves are the John Cheever short stories. But I'm dating myself.
What do you mean older people?
Well, he wrote them in the 70s, I think.
I meant speak for yourself as well.
Okay, speak for yourself.
By the way, you can read a book if you're young. It was written many years ago.
You
There's
can.
no rule against that. You probably know that.
I think,
It's amazing how that works. Go to the library, go to the desk down
who's
the
on
hall,
the
you
top
take
of
it
all
out
the
of
lists?
the damn library.
You know who's on the top of the list all the time of the best books ever? Virginia Woolf. That was a long time ago. And Lolita by Nabokov. Anyway, we're out of time.
You gave me that too, by the way. I don't know if you recall.
That's a good book.
Okay,
It's a little racy. It's a little upsetting for some. Juliette Kayyem is up next. I'll shut now.
Malden's downtown is changing, and immigrants are helping drive that transformation.
There's a ramen noodle place. There's Arabic restaurant further down. There's Korean restaurant. A lot of bubble tea places.
The city is now one of the most diverse in Massachusetts, and its food scene reflects that shift.
Many people have come here, and so the restaurants have followed. Dine in Malden, taste the world.
I'm Megan Smith. You can find the rest of that story online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, dedicated to helping individuals and businesses pursue their financial goals with a full range of banking and wealth management services. Learn more at cambridgetrust.com. And the law firm of Davis Malm, knowing the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at davismalm.com. Davis Malm, lean, agile, strategic.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. At noon, Mayor Wu will join us here at the library for an hour of Ask the Mayor. Tomorrow, we'll be in Brighton. We'll be speaking with Joe Kennedy III about the groundwork project he's initiated in the South, essentially traveling in the footsteps of his grandfather, the real Robert F. Kennedy. And by the way, he'll be joined by Scott Cullum, who is the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate from Mississippi, who I heard speak in Cambridge is brilliant. Friday, we're back at the library, and Dr. Zeke Emanuel will be here with us. Joined now at the library desk by National Security expert Juliette Kayyem, former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under Barack Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and CNN senior national security analyst. Hello, Juliette.
Hello.
Hello.
So, hi, everyone. Everyone here knows I got here 32 seconds ago.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it.
I'm so glad, too.
A lot of traffic in Cambridge, I understand. Yeah. But Jim did not get his requisite time to criticize everything the president has done in the last 24 hours.
I'm
so we're going to start.
That's what
so
I'm here
it's your
for.
opportunity.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is fair to say that the excitement that a lot of us felt over the weekend about there being we were soon to have peace here and gas prices were
largely negotiated, is
going to
what he
return
said.
to
Largely.
normal. That was not true. So it's Tuesday. It's Wednesday.
I'm largely 26, depending on which way you want to look at it.
Okay,
where are we? So, this happens every weekend because he wants the markets to stabilize by Monday. But this one did seem real in terms of that there would be a negotiation, some negotiated settlement, of which the details no one knew. They were 95% of the way there, but no one knew what the 5% was. What was happening was there's a deal. The deal looks worse than the deal that Obama had gotten, plus a bunch of $1 billion later, bunch of over a dozen service members dead. I mean, it's sort of like you're starting worse off than when you started. And there's no regime change, and there's no deal on nuclear. So it's like, what did we do this for? We got neither of the two things that were arguably what we went into it for. And so the right wing started going after it, and then people were in the weird position who opposed the war, saying yes, take this settlement. And so then the president blinked because he lives in a world in which he doesn't have opinions. So it's just like the opinions are sort of like what he's reading on social media, or he has opinions, but he doesn't really have any values. And so he seemed to backtrack. So I wish I could tell you where I think this is. There was some fighting yesterday. But I think everyone, honestly, it's like weird. It's like with the wink and a nod, I think everyone's going to accept a deal because everyone wants out, in particular the Gulf
I don't
states.
know, but I really don't I understand that he's going to say that we're going to have 30 to 60 days to negotiate the best nuclear deal in the history of the world. And by the way, when John Kerry was with us in the studio, a month ago, he told us it took, 18 to 24 months to negotiate that deal with Ernie Moniz, fellow full Riverite.
I know.
And he's going to do it in 30 to 60 days. But I don't even understand the Strait thing. If the Strait is to reopen, clearly Iran has learned what incredible leverage it has there, even if it didn't understand before. So they're not going to give up a total authority.
So there's going to be no nuclear deal, like there wasn't 100 deals signed for the tariff.
Yeah.
None.
But
remember, he promised, he said, we're going to sign 100 deals in 100 days. there was ideas of deals like with India and stuff. There was none. So what's going to happen? I think every party is going to accept America's defeat, which is that's what this is. I mean, this is such a strategic loss for the United States, and it's not just Iran. I mean,
and he'll say it's the greatest.
Yeah, but how does he leave if the strait is not completely
because the
open?
Iranians do have a goal in opening up the strait.
So,
right.
No tolls,
right,
no nothing,
right.
no regulation about who goes through and who doesn't.
But what they don't want is they don't want the straits closed indefinitely because that's part of their commercial power too. They now have
right. He's blockading their ports.
Yeah, and they now have the power.
My question is, will it be open free of charge? Will it be open without regulation, like it was before the war, or are they going to put some constraints on it?
Well, it depends on what the Americans do. So I think what you're not hearing from the Iranians is where is Trump? I mean, like literally, how can we not know what the America's position is? It's not like this is a sophisticated group of people that are playing chess. Like the president doesn't know what his position is because he doesn't know why he went into the war, right? So he has, as I said, when you have no values, you have no foreign policy, right? There's no value here.
Well, the one thing he has
wants.
said in last week that was definitive is Netanyahu will do whatever I want.
Yeah, that's not happening either.
Exactly. They're still bombing Lebanon.
Yeah.
And, Marjorie every day says to me, we've had the UN person whose name I forget, and I'm apologies.
From Gaza.
What is it? What's her name?
Yeah, she's been...
Olga Cherevka,
Olga Chernoff,
who is called in. She's
before.
Zoomed in from Gaza City here a bunch of times. Absolutely nothing is happening good on the Gaza front. Beirut and surrounding areas continue to be bombed, arguing that it's all about Hezbollah, even though innocent civilians...
Did you see the story this morning?
I don't know.
About the peace board or whatever that's supposed to help Gaza?
Oh, his peace commission?
Not a single dollar. They all came up and said, we're going to do $1 billion for this peace thing and for rebuilding Gaza. Not a single contribution.
Really?
There's no money in the pot. So the Israelis are not interested in Gaza and rebuilding Gaza. They're interested in acquiring Gaza. They're not interested in ending the war in Lebanon. Why is that? Because Netanyahu, like Trump, only has one goal, which is himself. If you think this has been good for Israel, people, dream on, right? I mean, and what you're seeing is even the Saudis walk away from any of the overtures to Israel. This is such
being around the Abraham, saying I want all of you to join the Abraham Accords.
Sad. I mean, anyway, I won't get into it. But
we're talking
the long-term consequences for Israel.
We're talking to Juliette Kayyem.
Well, what also is sad if you're in the tourist business is tourism being down all across the United States, and this kind of, I think, a wacky idea from the Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen to, close, to take away border. Basically, when your tourists come in from other countries, you go through Customs and Border Patrol.
Yeah.
Saying because of the political views in certain sanctuary cities.
He'll take away CBP.
He's taking them away.
Right, which would mean that you're not authorized to come into the country unless you're a U.S. citizen.
Even Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, Trump's guy, thinks this is nuts.
He hasn't done it yet, right?
He hasn't.
No, he's talking about it.
So there's only two ways to interpret this. One is that Mullen, like everyone else, Mullen wants to have a primetime talk show on Fox News, so goes on Fox News for the fodder and for the reaction. I'm surprised by it, though, because he hasn't dropped it. This is now week 2 of sort of hinting of this. You have the airlines industry buckling under the price of gas and oil. You have the World Cup coming up. You have and then you have the overall numbers of tourism going down. This is huge, and it's huge for. It's not like American Airlines. Oh, I don't need to worry about American Airlines. This is small businesses that benefit from tourism. Think about Maine. Think about, the small family
Canadians
restaurants on the Cape. Yeah, exactly. So that combination has just been disastrous. Duffy says it's crazy, but I will tell you, I can't believe that they haven't shut Mullen down. Like if they haven't shut Malden down on this within 24 to 48 hours, I would guess that they're going to try it on one city. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's Boston, that they just pull CBP from Logan.
Well, or maybe it's just a threat and naively thinking that these mayors are going to buckle or at least compromise on something.
Yeah. They're not going to.
With summer travel, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, but who does this harm, right? Like, so, I mean, it harms.
Who does making people go back to their home country to apply for a green card? Who does that help? I mean,
also, cutting federal screening seems a bad idea if you wound up letting someone into the country who shouldn't be in the country. And that's
their argument is they'll divert, right? Their argument is to divert, but the way the airlines industry works is you can't divert large planes to any other airport, so they're going to be canceled. That hurts that hurts GOP governors. So that's what I'm assuming is happening now, is that the GOP governors are saying, like, you may hate our mayor, but like if you start not coming into Georgia because we don't have CBP in Atlanta, or if you stop, coming into, think Los Angeles is the hub for Asia. You're going to tell me that that's going to be tolerable throughout the country.
Your point being that LA or Boston may not be the end destination for these international travelers either.
No, it's just the direct flights,
yeah.
right? And it's also domestic. So if you're American Airlines and you're like, well, you can't fly into Boston, that's going to impact domestic flyers. Because what am I going to do? I don't have a flight now that's direct. So, I mean, I'm either not going to go or I'm going to go someplace else. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to fly.
Okay, so Marjorie told me how to try to lay off Trump for one day, but I'm going to slip this in and get your... can I slip this in?
What is this?
No, yeah, I've been wrong about literally every prediction I've made in the last 10 years politically. I believe, particularly after Ron DeSantis crashed and burned like he did, that anybody who tries to be a mini Trump, a corrupt, indicted, impeached, lying person can't succeed in politics like he's succeeded. It's only a Trumpian quality, and he's elevated to an art form, but nobody else can do it. And obviously I was right in the DeSantis case. This Ken Paxton thing, where there's essentially a dead heat in the primary and the runoff, he beats the incumbent senator who only voted with Trump 99% of the time in Trump's tenure.
Wasn't it like 60-something to 30-something?
It was like a total landslide kind of thing. So is the takeaway, is the Paxton thing aberrational, or is the takeaway, if Trump gets involved, you could be as low rent and scandal-ridden and as unqualified to be a public official, elected official, but if he endorses you, at least, doesn't mean you'll win a final, but you can at least be the nominee.
Yeah, I think so. The metrics on Paxton are interesting, and I just want to wait because I haven't seen them because...
He's also an election denier. I forgot about that, by the way.
But remember, I mean, there is a theory that Trump endorsed Paxton once it was clear that Paxton was in the last month. He waited till last month, and Paxton took off. Why? Because Texas Republicans were rallying around him. The question is those who like Cornyn or even independents, will they rally around Paxton? I saw that guy last night. I have only read about him, and he's the financial corruption, the sexual corruption, the whole, like, just a disgusting guy. But the interesting thing is, absolutely boring. I could not believe it. So remember, we always talk about this, like Trump, whatever you think about him, you want to watch. I was watching Paxton's, either he was on sedatives or something, but like he was reading, he wasn't warm, he was very Ted Cruzian. So I don't know. This guy who's running against him, is interesting and might be able to sort of, walk that narrow line. But we've been talking about, the Ann Richards days of Texas and the Lloyd Bentsen days of Texas for a long time now, and no one has been able to deliver.
So, you heard Trump the other day, his major argument against Tellerico?
Yeah.
he's what Trump pronounces, he's a vegan.
Vegan, yeah.
And if you're a vegan, I assume that's
which
a
is
vegan.
like not even, is that actually true?
No,
yeah,
he's
like
not
I think he,
vegan.
yeah.
But I mean,
so I mean,
Paxton last night accused him of having low testosterone.
Is that what
so
he
that's
really
a gay,
said?
yeah. That's a idea. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you who has high testosterone with his mistress, because his wife.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know what it takes for
This is
a
Paxton
political
we're talking about.
What it takes for a political wife to file for divorce from her husband during the primary?
On biblical terms.
On biblical terms.
That's what it was.
So, I don't even know what was happening, but know that was intense enough that she could not stick around even for the primary or the general.
Is that adultery, or was it thou shalt not lie, or thou shalt not steal? I wasn't sure the biblical term.
I'm going to find God in this election, because between the Pope and Democrat, I seem to like all the ministerial Democrats.
Okay.
I like the guy from Georgia. Yes,
the Pope did weigh in on AI. What'd you think?
So, my son's name is Leo. Look at me. I'm like, can you have a crush on the Pope? My son's name is Leo, so I would always like this Pope. So there's a lot of talk about it. It is a remarkable document. No one's going to read all of it. It's 200 pages or 100 pages. The amazing thing is they are playing Silicon Valley's game. They've got infographics. They've got a short version. They've got all sorts of things to make it accessible. We know the general argument by now that the human species has agency and that is what's godlike about us, and that these machines don't have it. But a big part of it that's sort of lost in this, because this was really viewed as sort of a pushback to these guys that are driving us all crazy, if not more, in the AI world, was his discussion about warfare, which is sort of getting lost in the discourse about AI, which was essentially humankind needs to weigh the gravity of the decision to kill, and the more that you automate it, the further you get mankind, and the responsibility and culpability factor. The more you remove that from the decision-making process, the further away from God you become. You can believe in God or not, but he was sort of equating God to the human species. So it was sort of like, it was a very interesting that the human species is a reflection of what God wanted from us, so we need to behave in a certain way. Anyway, I will be preaching no, I'm joking, but it was a lovely document, and someone speaking up against this madness.
Yeah. Juliette, thank you very much.
Bye.
Good to see you, Juliette.
I get to go back into that traffic. Thank you all.
Yeah, for Homeland Security under President Barack Obama, Faculty Chair, Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, CNN, Senior National Security Analyst. Thank you, Juliette. Okay, are you sick of billionaires running elections? Would you like to get some of the dark money out of politics? Coming up after this quick break, we are going to talk with Harvard legal scholar Lawrence Lessig just about that. Citizens United, reforming our electoral system, and how to get dark money out of politics. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show from New York, before he was collecting Tony Awards, Emmy Awards, and Oscar nominations, composer and lyricist Mark Shaman was a teenage piano player in New York with a love of old Hollywood. He turned that obsession into a career that moved from Bette Midler's inner circle to Hollywood scoring stages and Broadway marquees. Now he's looking back on the hits, near misses, and backstage stories in his new memoir. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham. In heart surgery, expertise matters. Mass General Brigham Heart and Vascular Institute performs thousands of surgeries each year and is committed to research and innovation. massgeneralbrigham.org/heart.
And the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings featuring Pete Buttigieg, former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, financial journalist Andrew Ross Sorkin, and former NASA head Charles Bolden. bostonspeakers.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. In about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, the mayor will be here. Mayor Wu will be with us for the hour, the second hour. Tomorrow in Brighton, Joe Kennedy III will join us to talk about the groundwork project with a candidate, the Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate from Mississippi, Scott Collum. Friday, we're back at the library with Zeke Emanuel. In case you hadn't noticed, it's an election year. At least one legal scholar is hopeful that despite the proliferation of big money's influence on our elections, this year could usher in the end of Super PAC cash flooding the zone. Harvard legal scholar Lawrence Lessig and his organization Equal Citizens is working on a case out of Maine that could actually restore democracy to our democracy. Joining us now at the library desk is Lawrence Lessig. He's the Roy L. Furman Professor of Law and Leadership at Harvard Law School, the founder of Equal Citizens. It's equalcitizens.us. Larry Lessig, good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, okay. So before we get to your plan, which I'm very excited about, explain to people where we are in terms of dark money, big money, where we are in the time of Citizens United and Safeway or Safe Sex or whatever the other thing is that goes with it.
Yeah, so most people think Citizens United gave us super PACs because in 2010, the Supreme Court declared corporations could spend unlimited amounts of money in political campaigns, and they think that's what created super PACs. But in fact, it was 3 months after that that a lower federal court, the D.C. Circuit, in a case called Speech Now, extended the Supreme Court's reasoning to create super PACs. And that decision has never been reviewed. But since that decision, we've seen an explosion in outside spending and in dark money. I mean, in 2010, the outside spending was about $63 million. And in 2024, it was $2.6 billion in super PAC spending. And the biggest change is in dark money. There was no dark money in 2010, and basically about $2 billion in 2024. And then that changes the role of the billionaires. So in 2010, 0.3% of outside money came from billionaires. And in 2024, that was 19%. So a 63-fold increase in those 16 years.
Larry Lessig, can you explain for people the difference between giving to a super PAC and the rules that currently apply and giving a direct donation to a candidate for office?
Right. So every decision by the Supreme Court reviewing the question of contributions has said because contributions create the risk of what they call quid pro quo corruption, this for that corruption, the states and Congress have the right to limit the size of contributions. And so if you give money to a candidate or you give money to a political action committee that's coordinating with the candidate, you're capped in the maximum amount you can give. I think political action committees at the federal level, something like $5,000. So that's a limit to avoid the public looking at the system and thinking, this is just straight out bribery.
The theory is it's not enough money to generate a quid pro quo.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
For most politicians, but that's what people think, right? But if you can give $50 million, or you can walk in like Elon Musk and say $277 million, then people begin to wonder. Indeed, the president in April of 2024 stood before a group of executives representing the coal industry, the oil industry, and said that if you guys raise $1 billion for me, on day one, I will relax the regulations on oil. And so how do you raise $1 billion? The only way to get $1 billion into the political campaign is through the super PAC. So it's the super PAC that became this incredible loophole through which this corruption now flourishes inside our politics.
So people who have no idea what they're talking about, like me, have been saying for years, we got to repeal Citizens United. We have to have the court reverse this decision, which is not going to happen. Your approach would not do that at all, would in fact adopt the reasoning of Citizens United to get to the desired end. So explain what's going on, starting with this ballot question in Maine, if you can.
Yeah, so the core idea, and this actually came, this wasn't my idea, it's a great group called Free Speech for People out of Newton, which has been pushing this idea forever, and we then allied to push it in Maine. But the basic idea is Supreme Court has said if there's a risk of corruption, you get to limit. And if there's not a risk of corruption, you don't get to limit. And that is the principle of Citizens United. And so when people say, like my friend Bernie Sanders says, Citizens United has got to be overturned, it's the worst decision in modern Supreme Court history, you want to say, maybe, but it's not going to happen. It's zero chance that's going to happen. And what that does is make people think there's no hope. But the point is, if you can say, let's embrace the logic of Citizens United, which says if there's a risk of corruption, you can limit it. If there's not, you can't. And show them that there's obviously a risk of corruption with the contributions, even if the independent expenditures don't create that risk. And so that's exactly the argument that we went to Maine with. And in Maine, we got the ballot question on the 2024 ballot. I gathered signatures on Election Day 2023. The first guy to come up to me says, I'm wondering what you're gathering signatures here for, because I'm here to gather signatures to get Donald Trump on the ballot. And I showed him my initiative, and he read it, and he said, hell yeah. And he signed it. And he said, I'm going to get everybody signing my initiative to come over and sign yours, because it's not a partisan issue in Maine. So in Maine, on 2024, on Election Day, 74.9% of Maine voters.
74%, incredible.
That is 600,000 Maine voters. Never have 600,000 Maine voters voted for anything in the history of Maine. So this is a nonpartisan issue in Maine. And the idea is, let's tee up this challenge so that we can finally get the Supreme Court to have a chance to address what it's never addressed before, which is whether super PACs are actually mandated by Madison's First Amendment.
And I guess as an example of 0 degrees of separation, this is now before the First Circuit Court of Appeals, the chief judge of which happens to be Juliette Kayyem's husband.
We arranged it that way. Juliette, then Lawrence Lessig.
So how do you prove, how do you demonstrate that even giving a super PAC, not a direct donation, leads to corruption, leads to that there are quid pro quos, or it's a quid pro quo, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the challenge we had actually before this case was that every court that looked at it said there's no risk of corruption with contributions. They just mimicked exactly what the DC Circuit had said. But when we got this initiative passed, it was immediately challenged by 2 super PACs. And the district court judge struck down the initiative. But what she said, the critical passage, which she said was that she accepts that contributions to independent political action committees can serve as the quid in a quid pro quo arrangement. So she agreed that there's a risk of corruption. Our lawyer, Neil Katyal, the guy who struck down tariffs,
former solicitor general.
So Neil got her to see that there was a risk of corruption. Well, never has a court said there's a risk of corruption, but there's nothing you can do about it. So this is the most extreme decision ever. And the great thing about the First Circuit, beyond having great judges, is that the First Circuit has never considered this question before. So we have a clean shot in the First Circuit with an extreme lower court opinion, giving the court the chance to evaluate what everybody now recognizes is true. I mean, my favorite senator, Robert Menendez from New Jersey, in 2015 proved it, right? Because what was he indicted for? He was indicted for quid pro quo corruption.
That's right.
And what was the quid and what was the quo? In exchange for favors from the government, he asked that money be given to his super PAC. There it was, quid pro quo involving a contribution to a super PAC. He had his lawyers ask the court to dismiss the indictment. And the claim was, the thing you've indicted me for, the DC Circuit says cannot happen. So therefore, I must be innocent. And of course, the court just laughed at that. But the point is, that showed the mistake. And now we have a chance, if the First Circuit, I mean, they've been slow in scheduling the argument, but if they schedule the argument and we get it decided in time, we have a chance that the Supreme Court could have this by its next term. And
which is huge, obviously, because it would have an impact in 2028.
Yeah, but the only, I was all excited, and then I thought of the Supreme Court.
Right.
A few of the members, particularly Alito and Thomas, seemed to me to be corrupt because of the money they're taking from millionaires and billionaires and people that have cases before them. I mean, I don't know if the court would find them corrupt, but there seems to be some corruptness. I'm concerned about the corruptness of the Supreme Court, actually.
Yeah.
So what do you think the chances are with this case if it gets there?
I think we have 7 votes.
You do?
Yeah. And so here's why. So first of all, if you think the court decides issues on partisan basis, I don't, but if you think that, there's no partisan benefit that super PACs give to one side or the other. Both raise endless money in super PACs. So it's not a partisan issue. Instead, if it's a political issue, it's an institutional political issue. So going back to the whole point about Citizens United, the Supreme Court can write an opinion. I feel like we're giving them a gift. They can write an opinion that says, many have criticized Citizens United as the worst decision in modern Supreme Court history. We disagree. We agree with the reasoning and reaffirm the reasoning of Citizens United. As long as there's no risk of corruption, you can't regulate, you can't limit the political speech. But there's clearly a risk of corruption with the contributions. So we affirm Citizens United, but we reverse this lower court decision, and then the whole country goes, huzzah, this is amazing. This court is actually making it so we can end these super PACs. And I think from their perspective, like, why not? Like, what do they gain by further corrupting the the constitutional doctrine that has already made it so hard to police the corruption of our
Well, it could help their reputation, which is sullied considerably at the moment.
It would help a lot,
So,
honestly.
Larry Lessig, you say 7-2, you have 7 votes. Make the case that Alito and Thomas will make that Menendez and situations like Menendez are not compelling examples. They're aberrational. What do they say?
Well, the only thing they could say is we just think that no regulation in this context is allowed, none. And so there have been many pushing the idea that they should have an absolute rule that says there can't be any campaign finance regulations at all. So not just independent, but direct contributions. So if you want to give $1 million, you can give $1 million. Now, I don't know about Alito. Here's the thing about Justice Thomas. Justice Thomas is an originalist. That's a person who believes that you should interpret the Constitution according to the original meaning of the Constitution. He has tried to overturn the famous doctrine of New York Times versus Sullivan, which protected newspapers. And his argument is that case is policymaking dressed up as constitutional law. He says what we should do is go back to the original context of the Constitution and ask, what would the framers have said? And he says under New York Times versus Sullivan, they would say there's no immunity for defamation, so that doctrine would fall apart. Well, when I read that, I thought, Justice, have you ever read Buckley versus Vallejo, the decision 50 years ago that created the whole mess of campaign finance law that we've got right now? Because that is policymaking dressed up as constitutional law. And if you go back to the framing and you ask the question, what would the framers have said about the idea of regulating to make sure that oligarchs don't have control over our political system, there is no doubt they would have said this is completely consistent with our conception of what the First Amendment allows. So to Justice Thomas, I would say, how can you want to overturn New York Times versus Sullivan and then say we should have an absolute constitutional bar on being able to deal with corruption? There's no consistency between
We're talking to Lawrence Lessig from Harvard Law School.
And just I know Jim wanted to get to something else before, while we still have time, but the oligarchs running the elections is something that's very scary to people, especially in the context of AI. So talk about what it means if billionaires are just able to keep doing what they've been doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we saw in the 2024 election, One Tech Super PAC copy the APAC Super PAC strategy, which is to raise a ton of money and then aggressively go after some critics of crypto and take them out and aggressively support some supporters of crypto. And in one election cycle, they flipped the United States government from being against crypto into being for crypto, this completely bogus framework for corruption. But that happened because of this coordinated action of a couple super PACs. AI has now seen that, and it is raising $1 bajillion to be able to enter the 26 and 28 elections to basically make it impossible for us to have a Congress that could regulate AI.
Yeah.
And the point is, it's not hard. You've only got to take out 5 or 6 members before the rest of them recognize that they can't stand up to this power. I mean, look at the Republicans and the president who, don't support what the president's doing, but are terrified because of what happened in, for example, Texas with Ken Paxton, right? Or Thomas Massie. So the point is, this is an enormous threat, and I think it's an existential threat for humanity, because I think dealing with AI is the critical threat that we have over the next 10 years. So we've got to find a way to disable that. And the point is, here is our narrow window of doing something about it. If the First Circuit takes the case up and decides it quickly, the Supreme Court could resolve it before 28, which means in 28 we won't have a presidential election that is determined by the super PACs. I mean, there'll be a lot of mess in there independent of the super PACs, but it won't be the super PACs calling the shots. if we can get this decided quickly enough. And that's the push we're trying to make right now.
Glad you said what you said about AI, because we tried to get Pope Leo. He was unavailable, so you were our second choice. We only have a minute left. Larry Tribe and Nancy Gertner, both of whom you know, have spoken to us after they served on the Presidential Commission about the Supreme Court. They went in supporting term limits and being against expansion of the court. They came out in favor of expansion of the court and against term limits, not so much because they're against term limits, but because they conclude term limits require a constitutional amendment. Expansion, obviously, the Congress can do. Are you on the other side of both of those?
I think that there's a question about term limits. I'm willing to gamble on it. I think expanding the court makes a lot more sense.
It does. Oh, you do? Oh, good.
Countries like
30
Germany,
seconds. Go ahead.
Countries like Germany that have regular appointment of the justices to the equivalent court don't make it into such a political issue because both sides know they will get their chance. And right now, of course, it's a completely political issue. It's weakened the court because people look at that court and are extremely cynical about it. They think it's politics, not law. And I think that weakens the institution of the rule of law.
If you want to learn more about this fabulously important case, equalcitizens.us. Larry Lessig, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for coming in. We much appreciate it. We say goodbye to those of you listening on 80 p.m. Make sure to tune in to Fabulous 413 at 3 o'clock today. Lawrence Lessig has been with us. Again, equalcitizens.us. Show continues here in Boston. Say goodbye to people at NEPM. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. The mayor of Boston joins us next at the Boston Public Library. We're streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
If you made a recent contribution to GBH, your donation could be doubled by your employer through our Matching Gifts program. Find out if your donation can be matched at gbh.org/matchinggifts.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Safety Insurance, offering a variety of home insurance products to cover your home's increased value. You can ask an independent agent about safety insurance. Safety Insurance will help you manage life's storms. And Newport Mansions, presenting their Inside the Gilded Age Tour, a guide-led tour of locations featured in HBO's Emmy-winning series, including The Breakers, The Elms, Marble House, and others. Tickets at newportmansions.org.
I'm Jeremy Siegel. Edgar B. Herwick III is back in the host chair today on the Curiosity Desk. Ever wondered why your dog is always trying to eat the most disgusting thing you come across on your walk? Or why your cat's always demanding to be let out only to immediately want back in? We've got a dog and cat behavioralist here to take your questions and texts. That's the Curiosity Desk today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Houston Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live. Thank you from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow in Brighton, we're going to be speaking with Joe Kennedy III. He's a former congressman. He's been doing this groundwork project down in the South, retracing actually a lot of what his grandfather did.
He is.
Years ago there. And he's going to be joined tomorrow by the Democratic nominee for Senate in Mississippi. Friday, we're going to be back here at the library, Dr. Zeke Emanuel. He's a physician, and he's brilliant about healthcare stuff and healthcare for you. We're going to be joined in just a second by here she is. She's walking in right now. The mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. She's here for the entire second hour, taking our questions and yours from the May edition of Ask the Mayor. The number 877-301-8970 is the number to call or text if you have a question for the mayor. And we also have our homie mic here. Our colleague Ariana's down there, and she can, and Hannah, I think, is
and
there
Hannah too.
They can, you can line up there if you have a question for the mayor.
Hello, Mayor Wu.
Hello, Madam
How
Mayor.
are you? Nice to see you.
I'm good.
Thank you for
Great.
coming in.
Nice to see you both.
So you just came across the street because there was a big event over there at Copley Place, Copley Square, I should say. What's going on?
we had our official ribbon cutting for the square and combined it with one of our neighborhood coffee hours. So it was a great time to celebrate all the hard work that's gone into a major renovation of a beloved community space, one that we heard over many years needed to be able to accommodate more uses and big events, one that people wanted to see more trees in. And so we were sharing that now this new Copley Square, despite what people kept saying before it was actually done, has 30 more trees than it did before, has 3 times the amount of seating for people to be able to just linger and enjoy, is structurally reinforced so that the trucks to install event stages or the farmers market and all the gatherings can actually happen. And new, of course, climate features so that it can absorb stormwater and help protect against flooding too.
Can I, by the way, I read Mary White's piece
it was a great
yesterday in
piece.
the Globe, and so I went over and checked it out. My only criticism, I like it a lot, is not enough seats, tables, and that sort of stuff. Is that happening, or is?
Did you see it today?
No.
So we just put the tables and chairs out now. They're in that higher area. I know. I'm saying if everyone could have held off a little bit till the ribbon cutting. We, it was sort of to serve 2 purposes anyway. The trees had been getting their roots trampled, and they were in the ground and not doing well. And so they're now part of a little elevated area where their roots can have full air and water retention, and that is where all the tables and chairs are stored.
I saw, and there's a lot of shade there too, because I went by yesterday, Jim, to investigate myself.
And no more muddy pit.
And there were a lot of tables and chairs underneath the chairs, the trees rather, in the shade, and the farmers market was off to the right. Now I don't know what's going. When the farmers market is not there, will there be tables and chairs there too? Or is it just going to be in that elevated section?
The tables and chairs will stay in that elevated section, but the hope is that there will be events and programming all throughout the week.
Yes, the farmers market's there, I think, Tuesdays and Fridays. It's great.
Days we're here. It's great. So can we move to something that's a little more chaotic than the Copley Square thing, the World Cup? First of all, you have an announcement, I'm told, to make about watch parties. Is that
we got our licenses.
Okay. And what does that mean? What's going to happen?
In addition to FanFest, which is City Hall Plaza, and spanning the period of the group stage matches, there will be lots to do there, performances by local artists and refreshments and all that. We're also hosting 6 different watch parties in the neighborhoods. This will include 2 semifinal games and then the final. And then before that, we're doing Spain versus Cape Verde, Brazil versus Haiti, and Colombia versus Portugal. So on a Monday in Town Field in Dorchester, on a Friday at the Boston Common Parkman Bandstand, and then on a Saturday at East Boston Memorial Stadium, and then the last 3 dates to be locations to be announced once we figure out which teams are actually in those places.
And where online did they find that if they weren't writing it down right now?
Boston.gov. You can use our handy search function and find it there.
I have a bunch of quick questions. And our number is 877-301-8970. Opportunity to talk to the mayor in a minute. You mentioned the Fan Festival. My reading is the Fan Festival runs from June 12th to June 27th. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But the World Cup runs through July 9th. So what about that interim 12 days at the end? What's going on with that?
So we will still have watch parties in different places, and we've also had some private funding and other resources to be able to support neighborhood block parties that are happening just if you want to close down the street on your block or turn a local annual cultural festival into a watch party as well. We're also putting together a guide of local businesses that will be showing the game and having other festivities. But there was the security screening protocols and infrastructure is really intense to be able to host FanFest and to understandably accommodate large crowds at a high-profile event like this. And so it does require shutting down access to a big part of City Hall Plaza 24 hours for that fenced-off area, even when when the FanFest starts at a certain time and runs until a certain time each day. That area is not accessible for the rest of the day. So there was a little bit of a trade-off there. Did I wish that we could have had a much longer FanFest and the private resources and committee funding to do so? Absolutely. We had talked through that. but there are, this is what we were able to do, and we are going to have the very best Fan Fest during the group stage.
Is that a Boston 26 decision, or is that your decision?
Yes.
Boston 26. A couple of things about well, I have a couple more if I can.
Yep.
We got a ton of texts in anticipation of you coming. Two things at once in terms of expense. My hometown is charging Philadelphia, my normal fare from the city to the stadium, $2.90, and the return is free. Here it's $80 round trip, which is a lot of money. At the same time, your colleague in New York City, as I'm sure you know, is discounting a limited number of tickets. I think it's 1,000 tickets, but nothing. Is anything possible on either of those fronts, either bringing down, I know you don't control the commuter rail, but I know you have a relationship with the T and Phil Lang. Is that possible to bring down the 80, and is it possible to provide at least some discounted tickets, or is it too late in the game?
At this point, I believe the T has made their plans. I think you know where I stand, right? I am always for trying to make sure we're removing every possible barrier to using public transit. I think we've seen news now of the Tartan Army, for example. They're chartering their own buses, and they're using the roads and doing so because it's cheaper for them to do it that way than taking public transit. I know there are costs to offset, and the T is really ramping up their capacity in a kind of heroic way compared to what they are used to, the sort of normal standard levels of service. I always believe that we should make it as easy as possible for people to ride transit.
Can I ask a naive question that I should know the answer to? And I assume you didn't respond to the discounted tickets. That's not in the works.
I believe their plans are set as of this point.
Okay. On the why was this is a naive question, and I should know without having to ask you, so my apologies. Why was Philadelphia, as one example, able to work out a deal where it was almost free to go to and from, and here we're $80? Is a lot of money. I mean, why wasn't the T able to cut a similar deal here?
So I think there are there's probably a micro thing and then a big thing here. The smaller thing is that my understanding is that some other cities were able to secure different sponsorships to offset costs. I don't know if that's the case here in Philadelphia, but I know at least some of the cities did use partnerships to be able to specifically encourage people to take transit by making it as cheap as possible to do that way. And then, there are other cities, and this is a longer-term thing for us as a region, who have sports hosting commissions that exist as a permanent structure, and they're able to then bid for and host and have a whole fundraising and resource-generating infrastructure already built up, whether that is a bit off of tourism taxes or other ways that they keep this regularly funded, so it's not every time they're hosting a new thing starting from scratch and making all the phone calls. And so some of these cities are places that we definitely should learn from as we're looking to snatch those opportunities and not just do a great job with the logistics, but make it easier to find the resources and then have more time to be able to really kind of up the standards and take it to the next level.
Last question, so Marjorie doesn't yell at me around the World Cup. I promise we can move on. Are you happy with Boston 26? I have to say, we've been doing this 27 years. We have never had a major promotion where we not only can't get anybody from the organization on the show, we don't even get a response to our emails. Martha Sheridan from Meet Boston is kind enough. She's joining us on Friday. But are you happy with Boston 26?
Martha's been great, and I think there are many people who have stepped up to take on really complicated work. And, every major event is unique. And in this case, I think it's pretty widely known that FIFA is its own unique entity to work with. And even the fact that we're now very happily celebrating licenses just a couple days to go is one example of how you really have to be on their timeline and their requirements for security, and it's a lot to manage. I think Boston always, Boston and the greater Boston and Massachusetts region, we know how to host big events. We will find a way, no matter what the situation is. But there's been a lot of turnover here. There's been a lot of fits and starts. And, it's a lesson for me that I think as we look to host big events, again, we have to have that underlying infrastructure. If this is something we're going to do as a region, we have to really learn from this and be prepared and build the permanent structures to do this. And frankly, before signing on to things, I think the various governmental entities need to be assured that we will be able to drive a lot more of the decision making and planning.
So what is your judgment on Boston 26?
I think we will have a great World Cup. It's an incredible generational opportunity for us.
Okay.
The fact that it overlaps with Tall Ships and the 250th makes it so that there's something for everyone to do, and we will be busy all summer long. So we're really good also as a region of recognizing our shortcomings, and that's what makes us the best in every way, is we hold ourselves to those standards. So we're going to work as hard as we possibly can until kickoff, and then afterwards, I think it's also important to recognize what we did well and then get back to punishing ourselves and doing better next time.
Our number is 877-301-8970. You're listening to the Mayor of Boston. She'll be with us for the top of the hour, taking our questions. And yours, Curtis, in the car. Thank you for calling. Hi, Curtis.
Hey, Curtis.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
First time, long time.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question for the mayor. It's kind of a two-parter. I wanted some clarification about some of this new budgetary cuts that are mostly impacting the local arts community. And I wanted clarification on why this should be justified for a police budget where the police have been falling short on this new initiative for delivery drivers across the city.
Okay. Thank you, Curtis, for calling in, and thanks for raising a bunch of different issues, some of which I think are very much related, and some of which are maybe less related. I would push back on them being directly causal or connected. But let me start with arts and the budget. So, we are in a different time now than the country and the city were in, let's say, pre-COVID, 7-8 years ago, when interest rates were near zero, when it was incredibly, basically cheap to get money to be able to fund development projects that could then generate lots of economic activity in a different way than right now, when energy costs are spiking because of wars that have been started, when tariffs and other federal policies continue to create this uncertainty over everything. And when interest rates show no signs of abating anytime soon, it just means we have to adjust to a different set of constraints. That is what we're presented with under the state laws that govern how cities in Massachusetts can set our budget. And we need to have a bigger conversation about changing those laws and finding ways where cities now everywhere across Massachusetts aren't having to make choices between public education or public safety or arts or other priorities that our residents more than, now actually have an increasing need for and certainly not letting up. When it comes to the arts budget, everywhere throughout the city, our budget is actually going up overall. Our budget this year is about 2% higher than last year, but and that's because we're capped at 2.5% increase according to state laws in property taxes, our biggest source of growth, and against everything else has been affected by federal policies. And so we have that 2% increase in revenues. Our revenues have been coming in where they have needed to be, but costs have been really going up. Healthcare costs of inflation, things that are just eating away everybody's pocketbooks and household budgets. And so even though the budget's going up, because inflation is even higher than the amount the budget is going up, it is perceived as cuts to the departments. We have protected staffing and therefore direct services that our city departments do, but other items like swag or food or travel costs or grant making that the city was doing has been pulled back across the board. Some of our departments, that was a big part of what they had chosen to use their resources for, and we're looking to build the public-private partnerships to be able to find sustainable homes for that function. But we believe our core function is to deliver city services directly. And in the arts area, we will, I think there's a gap of about $600,000 to $800,000 that compared in terms of grants that had been given out previously versus taking grants out of the budget entirely. There are partnerships that we are building to fill in some of those gaps. But overall, we believe that the city's core function, and our new chief of arts has been a real proponent of this, is delivering services, focusing on cultural stabilization, focusing on using the development process to identify facilities for rehearsal space or artists live workspace and other infrastructure needs that are the role of the city rather than our nonprofit partners who we also support. And then just a note on whether it's this versus police funding. I want to point out that, again, all of our departments overall have either been held steady or are protecting their staffing levels. Public safety is one area where overtime does drive a big chunk of the budget. There are only 2 places in the budget where by state law we're allowed to spend more than what was budgeted. It's public safety overtime and it's snow removal. Those are both because we prioritize keeping people safe directly through our policies, as a foundation for everything else. Our public safety overtime is very much connected to large-scale events, block parties, festivals, No Kings rallies, parades, open streets events. We are trying to host more of those than ever before. There's been an increasing number of those, and those also require public safety presence to make sure that people are safe and feel safe. And so because those happen so much more during the summer than in the winter, they're very seasonal. We make the best of the sun when we have it. It doesn't make sense to staff up to the level for summer. Rather, we keep staffed and we know that we manage that through overtime. So it is tied to events and things that we do want to see more of in the community. And our goal is not to draw from one to the other, but to make sure that we're able to fund all these priorities.
Mayor Wu, thank you, Curtis, for your call. You're taking heat on a variety of budget fronts, from school cuts to arts, as Curtis mentioned, some teen job year-round things, veteran services. But you said in the beginning of your response to Curtis something like, until there is some confronting, these weren't your words, of how to essentially to finance local government so they don't have to be in this mess. If you were the czarina of the, what do you do? Get rid of 2.5? We talked to you about that months ago. What should be done so that cuts like this don't have to, it's not just here, but obviously a lot of cities in the state. What should be done?
So the role of mayors and of city government in particular is we have to manage through whatever situation we are given, right? Whatever federal environment we have, whatever state environment we have, we will find a way to make the things happen that our residents need. And it can require more creativity and more stretching of dollars in certain economic times than others, and we're definitely in one of those times. I think the first thing is when interest rates come down, when we see some of the larger macroeconomic factors shift, it will feel different in a lot of ways for a lot of different communities. But even before then, if we wanted to actually change the system so that cities aren't directly tied to these economic cycles in these ways and we could better cushion, we need to have flexibility around how we can apportion and generate revenues. We are one of the only places in the country where cities cannot set their own budgets. We are bound by state law, and anytime we want to create a new revenue source and have a real discussion with the community about trade-offs, and it's never easy to ask residents to do more, especially in tough times, but we can't even have that conversation at the city level about whether our residents believe it is worth it to see our schools better funded if we were all to chip in a little more. Every one of those kinds of conversations we have to have with the entire state legislature because of the way that the laws are written here in Massachusetts.
And Mayor Wu, you may not realize that Jim Braude has claimed, erroneously, but he claims it nonetheless, that he is the reason streets were closed in the summertime on Newbury Street, because he said he wants to stroll down Newbury Street in the summer. You've had a lot of these closures in your tenure of streets around the city, but some of them are being cut back, including Newbury Street. So what's going on? Jim is very upset.
Well, a couple things here. Actually, and one thing I want to note on the last question, too, that I forgot is local aid is also really important, right? So funding that we get from the federal government and from the state government is a core part of how cities historically have been funded. Right now, we're in a different relationship with the federal government, and at the state level, the share of local aid has made up a smaller and smaller percentage of our budget over time. Now, the state has their own priorities. They've been also trying to fix the T and do more than has been done at various points in the past, but that is a big factor between those two items, Prop 2.5, local aid, and the ability of cities to have that flexibility. Okay, so on to open streets. Open Newbury will be coming. We announce open streets, and this is a quirk of government that we need to fix, but open streets and Open Newbury have been run by different departments, so they've been announced at different times in the past. We are doing 4 open streets events compared to 5 last year and 6 the year before. We'd gotten feedback that doing 1 per month is about the right time because open streets are a neighborhood effort where we shut down the street and really program it as much as possible, do outreach to the businesses nonstop, and get people to see that and experience that as a destination. Open Newbury is run by our streets department, and it's really just about shutting down the street and making sure it stays safe that way because there's already so much foot traffic, and we want to work with the local businesses there as well. Because there's so much happening this summer, and again, our public safety resources are going to be connected to watch parties and Fan Fest and a lot in June and July. Open Streets will start after the World Cup is over, and so we have a shorter time frame for those events to happen. We'll be back on a regular schedule next year when we're not hosting all of these mega events. And Open Newbury will, again, similarly, we're trying to work out the exact timing of where the games are and what the dates of Open Newbury are, but that will happen too.
Do we have to hit this clock exactly? I always forget. Okay. Ann and JP, you're on with the mayor. Welcome.
Hi, Ann.
Thank you. Another budget question. I was disappointed to hear that the city is going to attempt to keep funding the 3 free buses when so many other initiatives are being cut. This was already mentioned, but the 3 free buses may have served a purpose several years ago, but the MBTA data already show that most people already have passes who are using the bus. Yeah, it has speeded boarding, that's for sure, but most people already have passes. Very few new users are attracted, and very, very few people are ditching their cars for these buses. But the big thing is the MBTA has recently, last year, instituted the low-income fare. So, it seems like this was a project that was useful at one point, but now ought to be put to bed and the money used someplace else.
Okay, well,
if you've never seen the movie Dave, I would encourage you to see that and see about creative budgeting because it really shows how you can look very critically at existing long-term proposals and decide what's useful.
Okay, let's have the mayor respond, Ann. Thanks for your call.
Thanks, Ann. Yes, that program has been funded through the end of the fiscal year, and we've been in, which is June 30th, and we've been talking with the T about all of the dimensions that you just mentioned. You mentioned it a little bit as a side note, but actually the piece about boarding times is a huge part of this. It is, if you're out in the community, if you're talking to people who take this bus daily, sure, it doesn't add up to, one bus ride at a time isn't going to transform the your savings account and for each individual rider, there are bigger ticket items in their household budget that they have to budget for. But what we have found through our qualitative surveys and through lots of measuring of the impacts of this is that people now don't have to ration their trips. The stress lifted off your shoulders when you don't have to time everything just right to hit it all on one go to get to daycare drop-off and then to work and then to the grocery store. When you know you can just get where you need to be without stressing about it, without thinking about it, that is a real service that contributes to people being connected to our community. It has also, as you said, improved service. The buses go faster when they don't need to stop and wait for everyone to go through one door so that they can pay and uncrinkle their bills and this and that. And those service improvements can go a long way. A couple seconds at each stop adds up to a more effective and more reliable experience overall. I think we need to be going more in this direction than pulling back. We need, yes, the slow zones are gone, and that's a really important, big achievement for the MBTA to do that after so many years of so much headache. And we have to keep pushing because I was just in a room yesterday. We had the start of Tech Week, and I was with a bunch of young entrepreneurs and people who had founded companies, and someone asked everyone to raise their hand if they thought that public transportation in Boston was great. And there were no hands. There's been a lot of improvement, but we are not where we need to be. And every bit that we can still find those improvements, make those efficiencies, make the routes run faster, we should take those.
We are speaking with the Mayor of Boston. She's going to be with us to the top of the hour. The number is 877-301-8970. If you want to call or text or come on down to the library and ask her a question yourself, you're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Years ago, Massachusetts ignited the revolution. GBH News is bringing together the people, the places, and pivotal moments that took Massachusetts from colony to Commonwealth.
We all really think it's important to get the history out there.
There's a little bit of a feeling of being plunged back into history because you're right here where it really happened.
Discover the stories at gbh.org/America250.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu. And Boston Ballet, presenting The Sleeping Beauty. The timeless fairy tale is brought to life with exquisite choreography and Tchaikovsky's glorious score. Performed live by the Boston Ballet Orchestra. Opens May 28th. Tickets at bostonballet.org. And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, offering business and personal wealth management and private banking services. Investing more than $240 million in local communities since 1994. More at cambridgetrust.com. And Bunker Hill Community College, offering 6-week summer mini-sessions to achieve college and skills goals. Sessions start June 1st and July 13th. Registration is open. bhcc.edu/summer.
Welcome back to BPR and 89.7 GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Bradley, live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Joe Kennedy joins us tomorrow to talk about the groundwork project, organizing he's doing in the South with a candidate who's a very interesting guy, Scott Cullum, who's a Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate from Mississippi. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to the mayor for Ask the Mayor, here for the rest of the show, 877-301-8970.
You know, Mayor, you are kind enough to bring us a couple little gifts every month. So what is in these two bags you've got over there?
So these are to mark the start of summer and also to show off our Swim Safe program.
Oh, great.
These are summer towels through our Swim Safe program. It's an initiative that we had started to make sure that kids, but also their parents, learn how to swim. It is one of the most important life skills, particularly as a coastal community, and one of the leading causes of tragedy when a young person might not have had, the most likely factor if you don't know how to swim is that your parents never learned how to swim either. So this is a family initiative. We've had more than 20,000 free swim lessons over the course of the administration, nearly 5,000 last year, and we're looking to do even more this year.
How do people know where to go, what to do?
So they go to the Boston Swim Safe. Just look up Boston Swim Safe, and you can sign up and find where the lessons are.
That's
Simone,
great.
are you here at the library? Hi. Come on up.
Hi, Mayor Will.
Hello.
Nice to see you again. I have a question here I'm writing about the sidewalk work happening in John Elliott Square in Roxbury. I noticed that some of the historic brick sidewalks are being replaced with asphalt and new accessible ramps were installed. Residents seem to have mixed opinions about this. Some people want brick sidewalks preserved because they are part of the historic character of the neighborhood, which is beautiful. Others, especially seniors, say the bricks can become uneven and difficult to maintain and dangerous to walk on. I think both are important. And my question to you is, can you share how the city is balancing historic preservation and safety and accessibility when making these improvements? And I also want to know, I picked up my kids yesterday over here on Exeter and took the train up to Roxbury, and there were a lot of uneven bricks on my way home on the corridor, on my stroller. So it's very timely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simone.
Yeah, this is, the beauty of city government is that everything, literally brick by brick, is an important choice to our residents. And especially in Boston, where we have the benefit of hundreds of years of history and many of the original structures or materials, it's an incredibly beautiful city. And how we maintain it, how we pass that on, has to be in that right balance. And so we usually take our cue from the community. I'm happy I'll follow up here and see what the process had looked like and kind of where exactly we landed on which parts of keeping bricks or moving to a more accessible feeling material. But my take is that we should, as a city, we should never have to make a choice because we're worried about not being able to maintain something, right? When we choose to have a grass field versus plastic turf, we don't want to make that choice only because we assume that we won't be able to keep the grass cut, and therefore we're going to settle for something that might not feel as healthy for our kids. Or there are some cases where people have advocated actually the turf is the way that you get every season use, and it's more durable. It can take a lot more. So everything is kind of the context specific according to that particular community that's around it. And we've been trying to do all of it, whatever choice is made, better. Even when bricks are maintained and in the places where the community is very clear that as part of the historic setting and the environment that they want, bricks should be there. We have worked to make it more efficient. Previously, every time a brick sidewalk needed to be fixed up, we had to go through a long procurement process, RFP, contracts, this and that, the other. And now we just have one standing contract because we have lots of brick sidewalks in Boston that we know we need to repair, and that has shortened the process in many, many ways. So we try to do it as efficiently as possible and are always looking to achieve that right balance. And if we don't get it right, we continue to stay at it and be get that feedback from community.
Joe in Chelmsford, you're on with Mayor Wu of Boston. Hi there, Joe.
Oh, hi. Long time listener, third time caller. Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Mayor Wu, I wanted to just talk to you about rent control. Of course, I know you wanted a more nuanced form of it, where every city and town has a different situation. And I am glad that broker fee went away, and I hope those people that are still getting charged for it can somehow not be. Anyway, I wanted to give you 3 reasons why I don't like rent control.
Quickly.
And you can respond afterwards, okay?
Great.
Okay.
Yep.
Quick.
All right. Well, the first one is the governor has said that the specter of rent control has caused a couple of developers not to build in the state. 12 mayors, including Worcester's, the second largest city in New England, have come out against it. And in the Globe in March, Larry Edelman, their business columnist, one of them, he says the payoff they look for is in 2 decades, not in 10 years like the ballot question. And this, of course, will and also encourage landlords to convert to rentals or condos and reduce investment in,
Joe, we got it. Joe,
investment properties.
We got it. I think Mayor Wu knows all the arguments against rent control. Let's hear her response.
curious
to
about
where
number
she is.
3,
Oh,
Joe.
okay. What's number 3, Joe? Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Well, Larry Edelman in the Globe.
Oh, that was 3.
that was 3. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Joe.
Great.
How about it, Mayor Wu?
Yeah. So thank you, first of all, for your support and highlighting the broker's fee reform. That's an important example of how we actually have the power when we decide to legislate to achieve the right balance. And in that case, with the broker's fee, it's not that anything has been taken away from anyone, right? If brokers are needed to complete a transaction, they are still there and they can still be hired and retained, but it recognizes that the way things were structured before, where no matter who made that choice, the renter had to bear that. It created an upfront cost that was unbearable for people, and so now it either gets spread out over amount of time, or the seller or the landlord has it. So that was one example. We in Boston have sent up many, many, many other examples of legislation that we believe could have helped stabilize community members, provide important protections, and create ways to build more housing and to fund affordable housing. My biggest wish would be that we would have the transfer fee proceed, because that one is a small transaction fee at the point of sale on luxury sales of real estate, more than $2 million, and it directly puts all of those dollars that would, at this point it would have been nearly $200 million if this had been passed the first time Boston had passed it up to the state level. That money would have gone directly to help developers finance more housing. And that helps us create the housing that we need and ultimately solve the challenge that we're in, which is we don't have enough housing and people can't afford it. So doing something, I believe, is necessary. We had put forward in Boston a proposal that was very balanced. It was based on what other communities have done. And now I hear from everyone that our proposal would be just fine, because it set a cap that was reasonable. It recognized the need for us to have stability and also housing production, and doing things by the ballot is always an unwieldy hammer for a situation that is much more nuanced, and I hope we can still get there.
Speaking of both things you just mentioned, one, are you making any progress on the legislature approving this high-end real estate transfer tax? And two, relating to rent control and Joe's question, you are among many, I would say a majority of people who I know who say they'd vote for the question, who would like the legislature to negotiate some sort of compromise so that there's less, there's more room for local communities to make decisions rather than a statewide mandate. Is anything going anywhere on either of those fronts as far as you know?
I have not heard that there's real movement on that front. So I think on the rent control ballot question, we may very well be headed to the ballot. And I do believe that there is widespread support, because the polling has certainly shown that people are frustrated and recognize that housing costs are way too high and want something done about it. I wish there were a more nuanced solution here, but my hope is that this will open the door to being able to reach that nuanced solution after the ballot initiative. And on transfer fee, there are now many, many communities who have sent up their own home rule petitions to the State House. We hope that there will be some movement on this.
What is the just briefly?
Yeah,
what is the argument? We had this discussion.
$200 million Boston would
Well,
have
it's
by
also,
now.
even as I've said to you a million times, even if it's a horrible idea, if the elected leaders in a community want it, what do they say is their business to say you can't have it? I've never understood it.
This has always been the structure of the city versus the state in Massachusetts for generations now. It's been set up where we have a very limited local authority, because this is the part of the state where we have a lot of energy to run our economy and take care of people and do all the things that we need to do. And oftentimes the economic interests, those who are the benefiting from workers and not necessarily feeling the pain of increases in property taxes because they're benefiting from the commercial side of things, don't live in Boston and therefore have more sway with other parts of the state. It has always been this way. And I have great working relationships with many members of our business community, many of whom also are frustrated with the dynamic that we see here and wish that we could come to more of an accord. But there's some structural issues here, and we need the loudest voices in our business community not to be only focused on just cutting taxes all the time and having as low taxes as possible as their only metric of success. That is not what makes for the most competitive community. I know it's important, I know it matters, and dollars and cents and the cost and benefit of any company is a part of, and a very important part of their factoring of where they're going to locate, how they're going to invest, and how they're going to grow their business. But in today's economy, it is all about people. It is all about human capital, about talent, about where the workforce wants to live and can afford to live, and the things that we're doing in Boston to make our city the safest major city, to invest in the best public schools in the country, to create free museum access for our families, to ensure that there's advanced math programming in our schools, and so that the statewide winner of the Math Olympiad competition in Massachusetts is an East Boston fourth grader from our public schools because we started that program. We need our businesses to join us in advocating for funding for affordable housing through reasonable mechanisms, transportation funding, and real progress for more frequency on public transit, childcare. There are all sorts of things that we would love to partner with them on, and we will find the resources if we're in this together to make it work and create the best possible business environment.
Do you take off 5 months like the legislature does? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the answer.
You know what?
Do you take off 5 months?
I don't have a day off.
You know, the mayor
Sorry.
need not mention this, but I think it is enraging to me and to lots of people who may not know this, that there are many people up in the legislature who are massive landlords, own lots of rental property, and somehow it doesn't seem right that people who own massive loads of rental property should be able to vote on this and deny.
Great analysis in the Globe about a year ago about how much property ownership there is. We're talking to Mayor Wu.
So, Mayor Wu, you were until I think yesterday going to speak at the class day over at Harvard Law School, and you changed your mind. What happened?
Well, I didn't change my mind. I very much am incredibly disappointed and wish that I could be there. I think as folks might know, this was going to be a really, really meaningful and huge honor for me, returning to campus now 14 years after graduating from the law school, and through a time that really shaped who I am now and was my first entry point into working for Mayor Menino, and also a complicated time learning how to be a law student while also learning how to take care of my mom, who was recently diagnosed with mental illness then, and raising my sister. And so I was looking forward to celebrating all the incredible graduates and the things they're going to do in their lives. But we learned last week that a local union was had voted to picket the event and all of the graduation events, and I will not cross a picket line and believe very strongly in standing with organized labor. I do not agree with the decision to picket these events, and particularly the one that has been organized by students for students, and I feel just horrible for disappointing the class marshals who organize this event and the students who are there, but I wish them every success and know that they will go on to change the world and be the leaders that we very much need right now.
You know, one other thing, I wanted to summarize just the first two paragraphs of Cullen's column in the Boston Globe. He talks about in the last 48 hours before he lost his life, Bobby Kilduff Jr. saved two others, a young woman threatening to jump off a building in the Fenway. He and his rescue two colleagues and buddy firefighter pulled her to safety. Then the same Bobby Kilduff helped rescue a homeless guy who had somehow got himself wedged into a hole in an MBTA yard in Dorchester while trying to retrieve his cell phone. This man was a Boston firefighter who died Saturday night, tragically, in the course of trying to fight a fire in Dorchester. Tell us a little bit more about him and what happened.
It's a really difficult time for our firefighters and for our city, as firefighter Bobby Kilduff will be laid to rest in just a few days, and I know our department and our city are working to try to ensure that he has the highest possible honors, and just the stories that have flowed in, the impact that he had, and all the work that he's done. You know, our first responders save lives every single day, and they put their own lives on the line for that. He is not only had served the city for 2 decades plus as a firefighter, he's a Marine Corps veteran, also the father to a Marine, third generation firefighter, and just someone who is active in the union and in the statewide support of firefighters and being able to champion the policies and the resources that were needed to take care of those who take care of others. So just an incredible human being and someone who exemplifies what it means to serve. And so we are praying for the Kilduff family and for all of our firefighters, and just ask everyone to keep them in your hearts this week especially.
Can we spend a minute? You talk about somebody who exemplifies what it means to serve the public. Let's spend a minute on somebody who exemplifies what it means to serve himself. Two things. There are rumors, not rumors, there are reports that the Homeland Security under Mullins is going to reduce airport security and other things at airports in sanctuary cities like Boston and a whole bunch of major American cities. Are you concerned about this, or do you see this as just one of those threats that will never come to be?
I have not heard the details of this one, so I will interested to learn what angle they're going to take now. But it's been one thing after another of trying to jam through political theater and a harmful, destructive agenda in order to create the space for people who already have all the wealth and resources to have more of it, and to create a sense of fear and isolation and division that brings out, the tolerance for authoritarianism. And Boston we are going to continue to do whatever we need to do to push back on that. We're now 24 plus, nearly 30 lawsuits against the Trump administration. We are fighting back, building our communities, working with other cities who are doing the same, have built legal networks with other communities around the country, have built organizing networks with other communities. And I don't know the details here, but what's illegal, we trust and hope the courts will stop. And in the meantime, we are going to focus on the midterms and making sure we can turn the page on this incredibly ugly chapter in our political history.
When you go home, though, at night, I mean, Margie and I were talking about this morning, the $1.8 billion slush fund potentially to reward people who beat up and tried to kill cops. Some of the cops died. The IRS $200 million, whatever, $100 million savings, disenfranchising black and brown voters with this gutting of the Voting Rights Act. No plan for a war that's led to horrible outcomes. You're a pretty hopeful person in public. Are you as hopeful when you're not talking to the world? I'm serious. I mean, this is like unbelievably oppressive every day, practically every hour. Do you have trouble coping with this like we do, or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's a heavy weight, and everybody has to find the coping mechanisms now, whether it's getting outside for a bit and enjoying the new trees and benches and tables at Copley Square, or being with your family. And I know, when I go home every night, I am surrounded by people I will do anything for, and people who I know love me. And, through seeing what families mean to each other, ultimately, I still have faith in our country. I have faith in our city because I see that throughout our neighborhoods every day. But, Mira is 16 months now. She learned, a little bit ago how to shake her head no. So it was either, for a while, it was either no, shaking the head, or if she meant yes, she would just stay frozen because she didn't know how to nod her head. But she recently learned the word no, too. And so we've been hearing that a lot. And even, just little things like when she gets a special treat and someone asks her for a bite, do you choose to stuff it quickly in your mouth, or do you choose to recognize that your big brother might, want to get a little enjoyment too? And watching her navigate what it means to take care of herself and take care of her family and be part of a group that loves her, that's what we're trying to do in Boston, and that's what I know we will continue to do no matter who comes at us.
Mayor Wu, thanks for your time. We really appreciate it, as always.
Thank you very much for being with us, Mayor Wu. We're speaking with Mayor Michelle Wu, who's kind enough to visit us once a month for another edition of Ask the Mayor. Thank you all for coming down to the Boston Public Library. Thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. And keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast or our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, former Congressman Joe Kennedy III is going to join us with Mississippi Democratic candidate for Senate, Scott Collum. He's going to tell us what he's been doing down there in Mississippi, plus former Public Safety Secretary, Andrew Gabriel. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Ariana Gonzalez, our engineer, John LaCroix Parker, our executive producer, Jamie Bologna, our BPL staff, Maddie Gar, Bill Francis, Juan Jose Cadena, our host at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Stay tuned to the Curiosity Desk starting immediately after us on 89.7 GBH. Edgar's going to speak with GBH's Meghan Smith about why Malden has so many Chinese restaurants. And Jared Bowen and the Culture Show starts at 2, live from New York City. He's going to speak with composer and lyricist Mark Sherman on his new memoir, Never Mind the Happy. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Brody.
Thanks again for tuning in today. Hope you can tune in tomorrow and listen to our shows after us. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Have a great day.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's how-tos and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham. In heart surgery, expertise matters. Mass General Brigham Heart and Vascular Institute performs thousands of surgeries each year and is committed to research and innovation. massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And MIT Sloan Executive Education. Their non-degree executive courses are led by MIT Sloan faculty and are designed to provide a targeted and flexible means to future-proof your business and career. Executive.mit.edu.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar Beherwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, a question. Why are there so many Asian restaurants in Malden? And why is the mayor out playing Pokemon Go? Turns out there are answers to both of those questions, and they aren't totally unrelated. Then it's editor-at-large for Springfield-based Merriam-Webster, who has a different job this week, judge and official word picker for the Scripps National Spelling Bee. He joins us live from the Arena, Constitution Hall in D.C., where the SPELLING has begun. And ever wondered why your dog's trying to eat the most disgusting thing you come across on your walk? Or why your cat wants to be let out only to be let back in? A dog and a cat behaviorist walk into the studio, this one in fact, and take your questions live. It's all ahead this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is huddling with his top aides as his administration weighs its options for ending the war the U.S. and Israel began with Iran in late February. At today's cabinet meeting, Trump is expressing confidence both sides will reach a deal.
Iran is very much intent. They want very much to make a deal. So far, they haven't gotten there. We're not satisfied with it, but we will be. We will be either that or we'll have to just finish the job.
It is a marked contrast from over the weekend when Trump projected a breakthrough was imminent. U.S. forces later launched attacks on Iranian missile launch sites and suspected mine-laying boats that the Pentagon described as defensive strikes. Iran accused the United States of acting in bad faith. In the fallout of the war with Iran, the impact on shrimpers, Americans eat more than 5 pounds of shrimp per person every year on average. But as Drew Hawkins from the Gulf States newsroom tells us, Southern shrimpers are getting squeezed by imported seafood and skyrocketing fuel costs.
A.C. Cooper has shrimped the Gulf for more than 50 years. Now his boat sits tied to the dock in Port Sulphur, Louisiana. He's taken a second job ferrying oil rig workers to make ends meet.
You know, you can't make enough money during this shrimp season in order to make it all year. So we have to supplement our way of life.
Diesel has spiked to over $5 a gallon. Cooper says he has to catch at least 1,000 pounds of shrimp just to break even on fuel costs. He says he hopes he can get back to shrimping, to doing what he loves. Until then, his boat remains tied to the docks. For NPR News, I'm Drew Hawkins in Port Sulphur, Louisiana.
The Minneapolis police chief tasked with reforming the department after the 2020 high-profile murder of George Floyd has resigned. Kari Spencer reports the official stepped down after facing discipline from the mayor.
An investigation found that Brian O'Hara likely interfered with a prior investigation into allegations that he had sexual relationships with city employees. Investigators said that those allegations were not substantiated, but Mayor Jacob Frey said the investigation interference was a breach of trust.
When you serve as chief of the Minneapolis Police Department, trust is not secondary to the job, it is the job. And when trust is broken, it becomes extremely difficult to continue leading effectively.
O'Hara came to Minneapolis in 2022, bringing with him the promise of rebuilding MPD and trust with the city's residents. For NPR News, I'm Kari Spencer in Minneapolis.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton advances to the general election for U.S. Senate after defeating four-term Senator John Cornyn in yesterday's runoff. It's NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Roughly 45 school bus drivers and monitors in Marlboro went on strike today over stalled contract negotiations. Their union, Teamsters Local 170, says health care and retirement benefits remain key sticking points after 4 months of bargaining with NRT Bus, the district's transportation contractor. Union spokesperson Jim Mark says NRT's final offer falls far short of providing affordable health care.
They don't have much of a offer for health insurance at a 60-40 split. And all these drivers and monitors worry about if they have to take their family to the doctors, whether they're going to be facing a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 bill.
A spokesperson for Marlboro Public Schools says they've hired temporary drivers and are working to ensure minimal disruption to students and families. Well, Boston's beloved Zitgo sign sitting high atop Kenmore Square will soon go dark for at least 6 months as crews reconstruct and relocate it. The Globe reports that as soon as this Friday, construction crews will start the multi-month process to the move, and they're going to move it 30 feet higher and 120 feet east of its current home atop 660 Beacon Street. It'll still be on the same rooftop, just in a different spot, and while not officially a city landmark, the Zitgo sign has stood above Kenmore Square for decades. It's one of the most recognizable spots on the Boston skyline. The Zitgo Petroleum Company is expected to announce details of the sign's relocation later today. 85 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Welcome back to BPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Building a career is possible at Progressive Insurance, now offering virtual and hybrid employment opportunities with pathways for advancement. Learn more at careers.progressive.com.
Welcome to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, one of the things we take pride about in the show is hearing out and responding to our listeners' curiosities. But of course, that is not exclusive to us. A few weeks ago, our colleagues with the Equity and Justice team fielded a seemingly simple question. Why are there so many Asian restaurants in Malden? Well, that question became the focus of an incredible video piece by our friend and newsroom colleague Meghan Smith as part of their ongoing series on Massachusetts gateway cities. You know, you can check this video out on YouTube. It's got 100,000 plus views and counting. In her reporting, Meghan also discovered a city in love with Pokemon. Meghan Smith joins us now alongside Diana Jeong, a lifelong Malden resident and the co-founder of the Greater Malden Asian American Community Coalition. Meghan, it is great to have you back here on the Curiosity Desk. Diana, welcome. Your first time on the Curiosity Desk.
Thank you. My pleasure. Hello.
Great to have you both. All right, Meghan, I want to start with you. So, obviously we have this question that came in. How did you wind up covering this story about Asian restaurants in Malden?
Yeah, we love a question to help us guide our reporting. This actually came from our launch video for our project about gateway cities. Our team is going to go to all 26 gateway cities in Massachusetts this year. So in our video, we asked people, what questions do you have about your city? What do you want to know? And as you say, someone wrote in, why are there so many Asian restaurants in Malden? And that really turned into quite a journey of discovery. It's where I met Diana and learned that, for more than 70 years ago, her father had a restaurant, and it just kind of took off from there. And we learned a lot about immigration, public transportation, Asian culture that's thriving in Malden.
All right, we're going to explore that all a little bit more. But before we get there, for folks who don't know, what is a gateway city, and why is GBH doing this kind of look at all of these gateway cities?
Yeah, so the term gateway city was coined about 20 years ago. It applies to small to medium-sized cities in Massachusetts that meet certain criteria about education and income level. And gateway comes from the idea that they are gateways to the American dream because many immigrant communities settled in them. A lot of them are kind of former mill towns, former industrial cities like Lowell, Worcester, New Bedford, Fall River, Everett, Chelsea, all the way out to, Springfield and Western Mass. So, one of our goals on our team is to cover stories that we think aren't being covered. So we thought, really exploring these communities, diving into the different cultures, the diversity of them, it's going to be a great way to study Massachusetts and what's going on. So we are setting up community listening sessions in all the cities we're halfway through the year. So we've gone to about 13 cities already, and we will be going to all 26 by the end of the year.
All right, so let's talk about this story in particular. I mean, sometimes I like to think about reporting a story as a little bit like a piece of popcorn, right? You start with this kernel,
yes,
and it will explode as you do your reporting into its own unique
this
shape.
One did.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about what did you find as you started? I mean, it seems like a simple question. Somebody asked, why are there so many Asian restaurants? So you go to Malden, and what did you learn?
Yeah. So we learned that a lot of Asian people came to Malden back in the 70s when the Orange Line was extended to Malden, which Diana knew. And then the other reason was that people were getting priced out of Chinatown in Boston. They didn't want to live there, maybe for, safety reasons. And a lot of Asian people went to Quincy South, but then north to Malden. And the city used to be a lot of Irish and Italian immigrants. It's now one of the most diverse cities in all of Massachusetts. And I think the high school is officially the most diverse high school in all of Massachusetts. So we discovered that, but we also discovered something I didn't expect, which is Malden is home to the Malden Gaming District. And there's quite a vibrant Pokemon Go community there because the mayor is a big avid gamer and is just pushing to make Malden a destination for gaming businesses. So this was quite a fun discovery, if I do say so.
All right. Well, I mean, what could be more fun than gaming? We'll talk a little bit more about gaming in a second, but Diana, I want to turn to you. You're not just in a position of authority with your role in the Greater Malden Asian American Community Coalition. You are also a lifelong Malden resident. And as Meghan pointed out, your family is at the sort of start of this restaurant boom in many ways.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about the background of your family in Malden.
Well, thank you. My father owned what was called the Jade Restaurant, the building was torn down, is now apartments. He was born in San Francisco and went to New York City to learn the restaurant business and that was kind of the career path for a lot of folks at that time who wanted to be in learn about the restaurants. He found an opportunity in Malden to purchase this small restaurant. This is around the World War II era. It was called The Good Earth at that time. He was successful enough to expand it, practically double the size. For a long time, it was the only Asian Chinese restaurant in Malden. Some early in the 60s, there was a little bit more competition, but he was very successful in his restaurant business. He got to know a lot of the community leaders and was involved in the Chamber of Commerce and such. So I was very proud of his success
Did you grow up working in the restaurant?
They wanted me to, but I didn't like to do that.
How did you get out of it?
Well, I think I was a little bit of a brat. But no, I did. I was in the restaurant because my father was there and my mother helped out a little bit. There were some family members who were part of the restaurant. We had to eat, so I was physically in the restaurant. But as I said, I think it was too much of a brat to be of too much
got out
use.
Of having to pull the long hours. Fair enough.
Oh no, there were long hours. My father would work till like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about how you've seen Malden change in your lifetime.
I would say it's a huge difference. I was born in Malden Hospital. I think I was the only Asian baby at that time.
Wow.
When I graduated from Malden High, there was 4 Chinese students, including me, so there was 3 others. And we knew everybody. I talked to some of the students now who are, juniors and seniors, and they kind of look at me when they see there was only 4 of us, because currently the Malden population for Asians is about 26 to 30%.
Yeah.
There's about 60, 70 different languages spoken in the high school. So it's a huge difference. But we did start to see a little bit of the difference, as Meghan said, once the MBTA came, which was in the mid-'70s.
Yeah, is that the biggest factor here?
I think there was a very significant factor. The other factor, too, was at that time in Chinatown, it was kind of the combat zone, and it wasn't safe to live there. People got robbed. It was just not a good place for this to have children there. Malden had some really good housing stock. It's well maintained, and at that time affordable. Although nothing is affordable now. You live there. You tell your friends. And it just sort of grew.
A community blossoms.
Yes,
you could have a backyard, right?
Yes, with a backyard. For gardens.
Yeah.
For your gardens, yeah.
You listen to The Curiosity Desk. We're talking with GBH's Meghan Smith and lifelong Malden resident Diana Jeong about Asian restaurants in the city's gaming district. So let's turn to the city's gaming district. As your kernel of popcorn popped when you were doing this story, lo and behold, the gaming district became a central piece of this. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, right when I got off the Orange Line at Malden Center, there's a big sign that says Malden Gaming District. It has, all the symbols and, classic, it looks like a classic arcade sign. I was intrigued. And I learned that for about the last 10 years, the city has been developing this gaming district. And it's not gambling, to be clear. It's mostly, there's a video game cafe, there's this comic book store, and they include gaming broadly. There's a karaoke bar, a rock climbing gym, and then there's a lot of events that go on too. There's like role-playing games and then Pokemon Go, which we'll talk about. But the mayor himself is a big part of this. He's a super big gamer. He used to work at an arcade.
Yeah, in your story, he notes that he worked in an arcade for 10 years.
He's a super big Pokemon Go player himself. So it started with this Bodeborg, if people have heard of it.
I was gonna ask about that. Yeah. So when Bodeborg opened years and years ago, myself, GBH's Adam Riley, and former GBHer Christina Quinn did a story where we all went and did Bodeborg. We did that story for Greater Boston.
Yes.
And so I remember that.
How do you explain that? Because someone explained it to me, a mix between Escape Room and Ninja Warrior.
I mean, that's fair. I would describe it a little bit more like a Escape Room and live puzzles. Like there's a little bit of physicality, but it's more that it's puzzles and also you got to solve the puzzle to escape. Yeah. Sometimes physical.
Yeah. So I think, as the mayor said, that's kind of the crown jewel of the gaming district, but he has plans. He wants to keep going, he wants a retro arcade there, so it's thriving there. It's pretty unique. I'm not aware of any other district like this. If anyone knows one, let us know. But yeah,
Diana, how have you noticed the impact of the sort of gaming, the gaming district, so called? Has it been a good thing for Malden?
I think it's been a good thing. There's also sort of a tie-in where after they do their Pokemon thing, the mayor literally escorts, I would say, at least 100 players to a local restaurant.
There you go.
And I think there's just sort of a lot of joy in doing something like this. It's you play your game, you have fun, you go to eat. I can't think of anything that's more exciting or fun for a weekend to do.
Yeah. And the city is trying to promote that connection. They have a campaign called, I think it's Gourmet and Gaming. So they are encouraging people to kind of pair those together.
And I think some of the other restaurants, like the breweries, are getting involved with that sort of board games and such.
Game
so
nights,
so it's just sort of blossoming
it's
into
an ecosystem.
Yeah,
You're watching
exactly.
an ecosystem develop.
Yeah.
What is the role, Diana? What's the role of the Greater Malden Asian American Community Coalition in this? What's that work all about?
Okay, well, GMAC for short.
Okay,
we were
GMAC.
founded about 10 years ago. What we saw was there was a lot of Asians moving into Malden, but were there services? Could they go to City Hall and talk to somebody? Why did you have to go into Chinatown when you could come here? So slowly we have been building. We've done a lot with getting language access to city services. We've gotten candidates forms where we have interpreters let people come in, hear what their concerns are, the candidates hear what the concerns are with the Asian community, so that they're able to have a reasonable decision-making process when they go to the ballot box. We've helped elders with gambling problems, with ping pong. We are currently in the process of getting a capital campaign. We've bought a building. We want that to be an all-encompassing building for meetings, for recreation.
For Pokemon Go.
Well, we hadn't thought of it, but why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Is your father still around?
No, he's passed many years ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No,
what do you think he would make of where Malden is today?
I think he'd be a little bit shocked.
Yeah?
I think... I would say my father was a little bit more conservative, but I think my mother would kind of be interested in it. Yeah. I think even myself never envisioned that it would be like this, but I'm very happy it is.
Yeah. Well, you never know where life is going to go. We've been speaking with Meghan Smith, senior digital producer on the Equity and Justice team for GBH News, and Diana Jeong, a lifelong Malden resident, co-founder of the Greater Malden Asian American Community Coalition. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.
When we return this week, hundreds of remarkable, studious kid competitors are progressing through the Scripps National Spelling Bee. One judge says they've gone out of their way to make this year's words especially tough. A little sadistic if you ask me, but we'll ask him just ahead. I'm Edgar Beherowick III. This is the Curiosity Desk. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show from New York, before he was collecting Tony Awards, Emmy Awards, and Oscar nominations, composer and lyricist Mark Shaman was a teenage piano player in New York with a love of old Hollywood. He turned that obsession into a career that moved from Bette Midler's inner circle to Hollywood scoring stages and Broadway marquees. Now he's looking back on the hits, near misses, and backstage stories in his new memoir. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the law firm of Davis Malm, knowing the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at DAVISMALM.com. Davis Malm, lean, agile, strategic. And Classic Harbor Line, offering a range of cruises for families, corporate gatherings, and sightseeing day sails throughout the summer in Boston. More at ClassicHarborLine.com.
You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar Beherowick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Why not join us there? Okay, throughout this week, a batch of remarkable kids as old as 15 and as young as 9 are in Washington, D.C. competing for glory and a $50,000 cash prize as part of the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Now, if they're lucky, they might just get the latest edition of Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, too. This is the World Series, the Olympics, and the Super Bowl of spelling bees all rolled into one. The competition is fierce. though the judges are fair. That is according to our next guest, though he may be biased. Joining us live from the arena, a.k.a. the Daughters of the American Revolution Constitution Hall, we are joined right now over Zoom by Peter Sokolowski. He is, of course, editor-at-large for Merriam-Webster, host of the podcast Word Matters, and this week, Scripps National Spelling Bee judge. Peter, welcome back. It's always a joy to have you.
It's great to do a remote piece for the Curiosity Desk.
Indeed, indeed. All right, so what are some of the big highlights so far?
Well, first of all, we're in New Digs. You can, if you're looking at the video, in an elegant reception room at the Daughters of the American Revolution, right on Constitution Avenue, right near the mall, right near the White House. And in fact, the exteriors of the West Wing, for example, are often shot at this facility because one of the facades of this building is a replica of the White House. So it's often what you see on screen.
Oh, amazing! Great,
sort of
bringing some great curiosity knowledge there.
Yes, so sort of doubling as the White House exterior is this building, which, as you can see, this interior, classic American, early American interior, but also the largest auditorium in Washington, D.C. More than 3,000 people can fit. So for Thursday night, tomorrow night, at the finals, we'll have a full house of live participants and audience.
It's going to be rowdy. So we're a day into the competition. The finals are tomorrow. What should we be watching out for at this point? What are we?
That's right. We're right now in the quarterfinals. We began with 247 spellers out of 11 million who participated in a spelling bee at school or in their town. That's right. This is a national program, and it touches many, many people. And so these are the winners. These children who are here this week have already won.
They're already champions. Yeah.
That's right. They've already won their local bee and maybe their regional bee to get here. And so now this is the Olympics, as you say. These are the best of the best. Now, the first two rounds are studied words. They are given a list of 400 words, and they're difficult words, but they study them for those first rounds. But then round three, we go off book. And any word in the unabridged dictionary, any one of the 500,000 English words in our English dictionary is fair game. And that's when really the rubber hits the road and you see attrition, you see things change. So this morning when I began judging at 8 a.m., we were down to 95 spellers in round three. We're now in round six. And then after I talk to you, we're entering the semifinals. I'll be judging at the table.
Unbelievable. So yeah, speaking of judging at the table, what is your role in all of this? Like, what does it mean to be a judge? What do you do?
Well, at this bee, I'm a judge. I'm just the regular judge, which means I pay very close attention to the sound of the speller. If they can reproduce the word for us, then we affirm to them that it sounds right. We don't coach them, but we do confirm. We have to hear them say the word because if they can't say it, they won't spell it. And so that's one of the most immediate roles is for me to assure myself that this speller has heard the spelling correctly, has heard the pronunciation correctly, and can reproduce it. Then we listen for the spelling itself. And of course, the head judge, my colleague, Mary Brooks, who's been with the bee for more than 50 years, sometimes sadly has to ring that bell, the famous bell, if the spelling is incorrect. But that's the way the spelling bee works. It's a very simple exercise. It's the speller against the dictionary.
How much prep? I mean, obviously the kids, the competitors are doing all kinds of prep. How much prep are you doing? Is it rigorous for you as well in the lead up?
It is. There's a word panel. There's something like 20 of us. I think maybe 8 of the members of the word panel are themselves winners of the bee over the years, including our pronouncer, Dr. Jacques Bailey, our pronouncer, the face of the spelling bee, a very friendly figure to the kids here, but also really the face you see on television. And most importantly, the voice that you hear. He pronounces every single word, and it's an astonishing role that he has performed for many, many years. He's a professor of classics at the University of Vermont, but he won the bee in 1980. And so we have 4 meetings to establish a word list that is as difficult as possible, but also as fair and as interesting as possible. We want words that, for example, haven't been used recently so that we have a fresh list.
How did you end up doing this? I mean, on the one hand, it makes sense. We know you as, the guy from Merriam-Webster Dictionary, so it's not a huge stretch to think about you being a judge's spelling bee, but also it's not fait accompli. You weren't definitely going to do this. So how did you end up in this role?
Yeah, for me, I had two paths. One was simply, as you say, to represent Merriam-Webster. I represent the dictionary that is the official dictionary for the National Spelling Bee. And as such, I initially came just to give the award, just to give the prize at the end. And so I would say a few words and give the prize from Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica, our sister company, and Merriam-Webster. That role grew into an annual keynote lecture, a lexicography presentation for the parents and the children about how the dictionary is made, how it works, how we revise, and some of the history of our dictionaries. That was Monday night. And then just a few years ago, the staff at the Scripps National Spelling Bee invited me to come inside the house, as it were, to become a judge and a member of the word panel. And I love being more involved because often at the word panel, we are trying to find words that are difficult. But for example, you can imagine some of the definitions are complicated and long, and all they really mean is a kind of butterfly, might. And for the speller on stage, we don't want to take 40 seconds of reading a definition that's very technical. So sometimes my role is to, from the dictionary perspective, abridge those definitions, make them sound appropriate and give all the right information, but not take too long.
I mean, how excited were you really when you were asked to be a part of this in that way?
Well, it was a great compliment and a great thrill. I've been coming for nearly 20 years to the Bee, and every year it seems my role has grown. And I had another kind of path, which is that I often conduct English spelling bees abroad because kids learn English all over the world. And so I've conducted, and in fact, I initiated the National Spelling Bee programs in Mexico, South Korea, and Egypt, but I've conducted them all over Brazil and Hungary and Poland and India. And so the fact is, I have a lot of experience pronouncing and organizing spelling bees at a lower level of ability, sure. But still, it is a similar exercise, and it's a great way to kind of gamify the study of English.
That's so cool. You listen to The Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Merriam-Webster editor-at-large and Spelling Bee judge this week, Peter Sokolowski, about this year's National Spelling Bee, the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Is the bee getting harder? It's like, I think to lay people, it sort of feels like it's getting harder. The kid's getting better, and therefore the bee's getting harder. What's going on?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's a kind of professionalization, if you will, that every year it seems like the words are harder. There's a lot of private coaching going on as well. But most of these kids are studying at home with their parents. But I'm talking 4 hours a day. These are elite athletes. Now, notably, a lot of these kids are also great at music and great at soccer and great, at other subjects as well. But we've found that for example, the conventional words, like words of Greek and Latin roots, for example, these kids breeze through those words so easily because they know their Greek and Latin roots. So you'll see in the early rounds of this bee, for example, there were a bunch of words from Hawaiian, like wahine. Wahine, which is spelled W-A-H-I-N-E, from a Polynesian language, or Hangul, which is the name of the alphabet in Korean. So these are words that they can't anticipate the spelling from just knowing their Latin roots.
Yeah. I mean, as you are there watching this happen year in, year out, how amazed are you by the kids? Or does that go away? Are you just like, they're just smart kids everywhere? Or is it like, holy cow, these kids?
It never goes away. It's always holy cow. I mean, it's, a kid this morning etymologized on stage. So they can ask for clues about a word's history. But the word was acrophobia. And the speller said, does this come from the Greek word acra, meaning high or above? And the answer was yes. And does this come from the Greek word phobia, which we mostly know means a fear of? And so it's a fear of heights. And so he etymologized on stage in front of all of us. And so you see them with a word like lalopathy or paleology. They break the words down into like Lego parts. Yeah. And they know, and that helps them enormously. A word like cosmogony. Cosmo is that word that means the universe. And so that gives you the O, because the problem with English, among other things, is the schwa, the sound that can be spelled with an A or an I or U or an O. So cosmography is that is that an A or an E? It was an O, and that's from the Greek roots. So the Greek and Latin roots, all the etymologies help these spellers.
That's got to warm your heart, because I think about you as Peter, all the conversations we have, I get the sense that for you, I mean, you love words, not just because they are words, but because they are these like portals, these entryways into world history and, geography and cultural history and all of this stuff, and to see youngsters, I mean, kids as young as 9, sort of picking up on this and using this as a way to start to understand that sort of broadness of the world, that's got to do your heart good.
It does. And you've touched on another point, which is, the cultural history of the English language specifically, which borrowed so many words from French after the Norman Conquest. That's all our words for law and government came from that period. But I noticed in this bee, for example, one kind of dirty trick from the judges is that a bunch of words from modern French borrowings, by which I mean in the last 300 years, words that are not anglicized. In other words, they're spelled as they are spelled in French. And boy, that really rewards kids who study French as a modern language. And so, for example, the word démodé, the word vigneron, the word maillot, which has 2 L's in the middle, the word farouche, the word aiguille, which is just the French word for needle, but it's spelled Aiguille, aiguille. And so the fact is, English has borrowed words from French throughout its history, but those that are more recent respect the French spelling. Think of a word like champagne or cuisine. Those are spelled as they are in French today. That's a category of borrowings that are very difficult for students, and so they really have to study a living language as well as those root languages.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Peter Sokolowski from Merriam-Webster, also Spelling Bee judge this week at this year's Scripps National Spelling Bee. Is it tough to, understanding how much effort these kids are putting into this, is it hard when you watch them get that ding and get a word wrong? I mean, like, does your heart break?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's heartbreaking every time. There's no question about it. At the same time, it's not fun if it's not fair, which is to say that we are making the victory of the winner even greater by showing the difficulty of the losers. Those who have misspelled have come so far and have learned so much. And here's the thing. I think English spelling is unusually difficult. That's why, by the way, we do this in English. There's no spelling bees in Spanish. There's no spelling bees in Korean or Hindi, which are perfectly phonetic languages. And even in French, they do a grammar challenge, but there's no spelling bee per se, because those are more normalized, more orthographically neutral languages. They are phonetic in their spelling. English is not. And so that's the challenge. What that means is for a kid who is 12 to learn that there is a word for the science of butterflies, that there's a word like lepidoptery. What that does is it opens their world. It means to them that they are aware they have named an idea, which is a subject of study, which could be something that they pursue as a PhD. In other words, you're cataloging the world according to this list of words, but also you're opening their world. Now, for an adult who misspells a word like lepidoptery, that doesn't bother me in the slightest. English is hard. But for a kid to know that spelling and to know the roots, that has made them aware of a field of study that they will take with them forever.
Yeah, that's really cool. Final question for you, Peter. Who is under more pressure, the kid to get the word right or the pronouncer to pronounce it right?
Well, our pronouncers at this bee are such professionals that they are cool under pressure. They have had this list to practice with. But if you watch it tonight or tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, both nights, you can watch it at spellingbee.com as well. You will see these people, calm under pressure. But I can tell you, as a pronouncer, frequently for myself, I am petrified. I want to make sure that the word is correct. And sometimes the thing is, if as a pronouncer you mispronounce, or you might give a clue, you might give a phonetics a clue, like a vowel sound, for example, that might give one speller an advantage over another. And I'm happy in those cases when I'm aware of it. I just toss the word out and go to the next one. There's always another word.
There you go. We've been speaking with Peter Sokolowski, Merriam-Webster editor-at-large, co-host of the podcast Word Matters, and judge at this year's Scripps National Spelling Bee. Peter, thanks as always for being with us.
Great to be with you.
And as Peter said, you can watch it tonight and tomorrow, 8 p.m. on ion.tv, or following along at spellingbee.com. Thursday, it'll be live for the actual final. Coming up, a cat and a dog behaviorist walk into a studio. This one, in fact, to answer your most pressing questions live. Give us a call. This is the Curiosity Desk. We'll be right back.
In the occupied West Bank, Israeli settlers are forcing Palestinian farmers from land their families have cultivated for generations.
They damage our life completely.
I'm Scott Detrow. We hear the story of one Palestinian pushed from his land and the Israeli settlers now swimming in its waters. On the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Subaru of New England. Wherever New England takes you, the all-wheel drive 2026 Subaru Outback is designed to keep you moving through every season. Subaru retailer locations at SubaruofNewEngland.com. And H&H, the Handel and Haydn Society. For their season finale, the H&H Chorus is in the spotlight with James Burton conducting. May 29th and 31st at NEC's Jordan Hall. Tickets at handelandhaydn.org.
You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Oh, what's that sound? Is your dog barking at nothing again? And was that your cat knocking your family heirloom off the table? While we love our furry friends, they tend to be a source of chaos in our homes, and I'm sure you've probably tried all sorts of tips and tricks and hacks to get them under control or get to know them better. But maybe at this point you've accepted your pet, quirks and all. Still, if you're at your wit's end and you need some help, or if they've got some weird tick or habit you've always wanted to understand, you are in luck. You can give us a call or a text right now at 877-301-8970. We will be answering all your pet-related questions alongside our resident dog and cat behaviorist. We are joined now by founder and director of the behavior department at the MSPCA Angel, Terri Bright, and founder of the nonprofit All Cats All the Time, Rachel Geller.
Meow.
Excellent. Thank you both for joining us. Again, that number, 877-301-8970. Terri, I want to start with you as we wait for the calls to roll in. We'll take your calls just as soon as we can. But let's talk just a little bit about how we ought to be interacting, just general good tips for interacting and playing with, let's say, our dogs.
Good tips are that to remember that dogs are animals and that they do not have a sense of right and wrong like we do. So when you meet a dog, if you love dogs, please don't stick your hand in their nose. They have 200 million odor receptors, so they can smell you from here. So just pat your thighs and invite them to come closer. If they do come closer, then you maybe can say hi, but do not stick your fist in a dog's nose.
Why do people, I think a lot of people do that. They sort of hold their hand up right to the dog's nose to give them a sniff. Is like, where did that come from? 'Cause
no one knows, but now
really,
it's on the internet, so
yeah.
There you have it. It's
so
everywhere.
that is a bad idea to do.
Ixnay on that, yeah.
How about with cats, Rachel?
Well, with cats, you always want to set things up so the cat feels like it's all her idea. This works great on my husband as well.
Okay.
Too. So
Cats and husbands, they're just the same.
So many similarities. So with cats, you want to let the cat set the pace of the progress. You always want to let the cat take the lead, and we follow that cat's lead. So with cats, it is a good idea to approach them sideways, let them sniff your hand, let them sniff your body a little bit, and let them get to know you the way they want to get to know you. So you don't want to approach the cat very quickly. You don't want to approach in a way that a cat might feel threatened. And it's important to realize that cats are predators, but they're also prey. So if they don't know us, we can be a perceived threat. And cats get most of their information through scent. So starting off with maybe gently placing your hand somewhere where the cat can investigate it when she wants to, or if you're sitting on the floor, she might come and investigate your feet or your socks, but let the cat come to you. Don't push yourself onto the cat.
All right, well, the texts and calls are coming in now. I'm going to start with a text here on dog behavior, so this one's coming your way, Terri. The texter says, I'm puzzled about my otherwise very friendly dog's sudden food guarding. He even shows his teeth. This started a while ago, unexpectedly. No apparent triggers. This happens when anybody approaches when he's eating food from his bowl or while he's chewing on a treat. Do you have any recommendations for what might be happening here?
Well, and I think Rachel would agree that with any new behavior, the first thing you want to do is have your dog or cat examined by a vet. Make sure that
Really?
they're healthy, always.
Oh, no
Because
kidding.
if they don't feel well, it can change their behavior. But food guarding is pretty common with dogs. If a dog can, on an evolutionary basis, guard its food, guard the place it sleeps, things like that, it's more likely to get its DNA in the next generation. So it's not unusual for dogs to protect their food bowl. So rather than stick your hand in there all the time, watch the distance at which your dog gets upset and stay at that distance for now. And rather than, if you're afraid and if the dog is growling at you, call for help, call for an appointment, because it could be part of a bigger problem. You can do things like when your dog is eating, drop better food away from them so they move away. But for the most part, safety first. Keep your dog eating in a different area, but call for help, because a problem like that can really increase.
All right, so you want to nip it in the bud. All right, we've got the calls and texts coming in. We're going to go to the phone lines now with Alyssa in Ithaca, New York. Alyssa, welcome to the Curiosity Desk. You got a question for us?
I do. It's about my cat.
Go ahead.
She really likes to lick plastic, and she also, like, if I use hand sanitizer, she tries to get me to pet her and then lick the hand sanitizer from her.
So she likes to lick plastic and she likes to lick hand sanitizer. I'm gonna go one more with you here, because we got a text from somebody about wondering why their cat likes to lick their bed and blankets, and another one who's asking why they eat tape and anything with adhesive on it. So this all sounds like behavior of a type. Rachel, what do you have on cats licking in this manner?
So you are correct. This is a behavior type called pica. And pica is actually pretty common in cats. And many times it's because of anxiety. It can be self-soothing, or it could just be a habit that becomes ingrained. So the first thing that I usually recommend to people is that we want to get that cat onto a program of what I call interactive play that simulates a hunt. So we want to sort of get that feeling of tying food to playtime, reward, something better than plastic. So if we can get our cats to engage and play with a one-type toy, simulate a hunt, really pretend the toy is prey. Don't just move it around mindlessly. Think about scurrying here and there, hiding here and there.
Yeah.
And then when the session is over, wind it down and give the cat some food. So now we're tying food to something very positive, but also now we've developed a new habit. And if we see the cat approaching the plastic or whatever material they want to eat, we can disrupt, distract, and redirect. So disrupt the cat's gaze onto the inappropriate item, launch into a little impromptu interactive play session with the wand toy. Most cats would way rather go after the prey and be able to kill and eat the prey than lick some plastic.
All right,
so now we're replacing, a bad behavior with a good behavior.
Habit. So there's some. Hopefully that works for you, Alyssa. I want to stay on this, which you said sort of pica. This sort of sounds pica-like. This is a dog question. Julia's texted in saying, "I have a 10-year-old hound mix who loves to eat tree bark. We've surrounded many trees with fencing, but he frequently lifts the fence to rip off the bark from the tree. Why does he do this?"
So remember that behavior increases when it's rewarded. So I imagine that when he tries to eat the tree bark, you're saying, no, eat this instead. So you potentially are inadvertently causing him to eat the tree bark
because
in order to get a treat.
At the end of this thing, he's going to get
he's
something
like, hold
that he
my
likes.
beer, I'm going to eat some tree bark and get some food. So feed him before he eats the tree bark. Have things around that are more appealing to him than the tree bark. And check with your vet, because eating things like that can be signs of indigestion.
Signs of indigestion. Interesting. So hopefully that's helpful for you. We're going to stay on dogs and go to the phones with Lisa in New Hampshire. Lisa, welcome to the Curiosity Desk. What's going on with your dog?
Hi, thank you. My dog is a fairly new adoption to us, and she won't use her own yard to go to the bathroom.
Okay, and so is your question, how can you get him to use your yard to go to the bathroom?
Yeah, we have a fenced yard, which is perfect for her. And when the weather comes to be worse for the winter, we don't want to be walking all around the neighborhood to get our dog to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Terry, what do you have on that for Lisa?
So dogs do like to go off property to go to the bathroom.
Why?
But what you can do, you don't
just a
go
dog
where you
thing.
sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what you can do is pretty easy. Take your dog out for a leash, and when they're going to urinate, take them to the same place every single day. Find a place under a bush, and they'll start to develop the scent there so that will go there. And then if it's time for them to poop and they won't because they're too distracted, I actually brought a dog to show you what you can do to help the dog go. And if I can get my...
So if you're watching on YouTube, folks, we've now... Terry's lifting a pretty large stuffed dog here.
This is my dog, Sandy. And if a dog has to poop and it's time for them to poop, then it's pretty easy to get them to go. While you're walking them, you just drape the leash under their tail. So under their sphincter, if you can say that on the radio.
You can.
And just kind of tickle it a little bit. And if they have to go, they will go within a few minutes.
Interesting. So if you're trying to get them to go in the yard, go out with them on the leash in the yard.
Yep.
Give a little hook there around the tail and give a little tug. How does that sound, Lisa? You think you could do that?
Absolutely. That would be a lot less walking than the whole neighborhood. Thank you so much.
All right, well, good luck to you there. This is the Curiosity Desk. We are taking your calls on cat and dog behavior. We've got Terri Bright, founder of the nonprofit All Cats All the Time, and Rachel Geller. Oh, I'm sorry, that's wrong. I've got MSPCA Angels, Terri Bright, and Rachel Geller from All Cats All the Time, taking your dog and cat questions. Rachel, we have a number of questions about sort of two cats. One which is like, is it always better to have two cats? I have another one, a text that says, how can you tell if two cats like each other? A third one asking, how do I integrate a new cat into a home where there already are two cats? So let's talk about the multiple cats thing. What are some best practices?
Okay, so best practices, if you're adopting a new cat and you already have a resident cat at home, you want to go through a process where you use a safe room for the newcomer to go into, and we're going to gradually and incrementally introduce that new cat to the resident cat. So you never want to go from 0 to 60 when it comes to cats. You always want to do things gradually, that the cats get used to something and then add something else. So a new cat into the home starts off separate. We'll start off with scent swapping, some soil swapping, let the cats be in each other's areas very gradually, and you work up to getting the cats to be together. Now, most times if you do a proper introduction, you can get to tolerance. They may not gleefully embrace each other, but we can at least get to the point where there won't be fur flying. For cats who are living together and not getting along, we always want to make sure there's plenty of resources. So that means plenty of food stations, one more litter box than there are cats. Everything, make sure there's multiple resources so the cats aren't fighting each other over perceived territorial threats.
Gotcha. All right, we're going to go to a dog question via text. This is anonymous text. On Sunday mornings, I put the dirty towels by the basement door for washing. Our youngest dog loves to pounce in the pile and roll around. She loves it. Why?
Dogs love things that smell terrible. That's just a fact. They,
just the way they are.
200 million odor receptors, and they love things that smell bad. And they also roll in things that smell bad to spread their scent, to keep bugs from getting on them. Everybody who has a dog has seen their dog sniffing in the grass excitedly, and then they drop and roll, and it's goose poop, right? So dogs just love smelly things. If it's a behavior you don't like, don't put the towels on the floor.
All right, there you go. So there's your answer. We're going to go back to the phones. Eva in Denver, Colorado, all the way from Denver, Colorado, has a 1-year-old cat. Welcome to the Curiosity Desk, Eva. Thanks for listening west of the Mississippi. What's your question?
Hi. So I have my 1-year-old cat, Boogie. He's very much the kind of cat who likes to sit on your lap, likes to have a lot of attention, but at nighttime, he's been scratching to go underneath the covers. And I'm just trying to figure out if it's best to let him go underneath the covers to cuddle, or if I should be stopping this behavior and not giving in, if that makes sense.
All right, what kind of advice do we have for Eva?
I have zero problem with letting the cat go underneath the covers to cuddle. In my house, my husband gets like a sliver of the bed, and the cuddling cats get the rest, and I go into contortions around them. There's completely normal cat behavior, no reason why you can't if you're okay with it.
Eva, what's your concern about letting your cat under the covers?
Honestly, it just, sometimes he does, it's almost like a kneading action, but he's using a bit more nail, and it just kind of hurts. It kind of hurts quite a bit, and he does it multiple times throughout the night because he gets up and down, and he wants to go to different areas, and I do let him in, but I'm trying to see if there's a way to stop that, or even a way to redirect the behavior so that he isn't scratching, and he can just go under himself. He doesn't need me to lift up the blanket for him.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if that's possible.
The kneading is a very common cat behavior. It's another soothing behavior. That's what the kittens do to the mom cat to express milk. So, it's kind of like people who enjoy comfort food. It takes us back to a happy childhood. So it's a normal behavior. If you don't like it, you can always distract and redirect to a toy, or you can play with your cat right before bedtime, take him through that hunting sequence of catching and eating. And now this puts the cat into his own hunt, eat, sleep cycle. So that might help as well if you do a play session right before bed, tap into his natural cycle, and then he'll sleep.
All right, Eva, best of luck figuring out how to best co-sleep with your cat at your home. All right, I'm going to throw a question both of your way here. This is via text. The question comes in, my dog is smaller than my cat. However, my dog circles my cat twice and then charges at the cat. Is this a bad thing? Should I be concerned? It seems like they're playing, but I'm nervous that one day the dog will actually catch the cat. Keep in mind the dog is 6 pounds and the cat is 9 pounds. What say you?
It all depends on what happens when they get close, and does the dog seem mad? Does the cat seem afraid? Are they both happy? Do they return to the activity repeatedly? Then they're probably playing. You want to make sure that they each can escape from the other one for safety if needed. But I had a 20-pound Siamese cat once and a 12-pound Bull Terrier puppy, and that cat used to knock that puppy down, and she used to get so mad, but they played,
Yeah, so a lot of cats and dogs will play fight, and that's okay. And as Terri said, we want an escape route. So for cats, I always recommend, like a tall cat tree or putting a cozy blanket on top of a bureau, someplace where the cat can get to that's cozy and comforting that the dog can't reach. So the cat always knows she has an out.
All right, rapid fire questions coming, one for each of you. Cat question for you, Rachel. What is my cat looking at? Can they see ghosts?
Cats actually have fantastic imaginations, and cats will definitely react to threats or stimulation, real or imagined. So they may be imagining it. There might be a sound or a movement they're picking up that we can't see or hear because their senses are much better than ours. So as long as your cat is okay, everything else is normal, nothing to really worry about.
Okay, quick dog question. Why do dogs eat grass? That's from Jerry in Newbury.
Because they like it.
Simple answer, Jerry, because they like it. All right, we've got a question from Patty about a cat. My beloved, adorable cat, Olive, is 17, and for nearly all her life, she's been very quiet, nary a meow. Over the past couple years, though, she started getting talkative. Recent months, she's had a lot to say. Loud, spontaneous meowing, sporadically, all times of the day. On the upside, it's easier to quiet her with cuddles. She's the best cuddler. But the worry is this an expression of pain, senility, aging? What do you think?
Yeah, I think any change that comes on pretty quickly and doesn't go away, this is a time to see a vet. So the most common cause for cats meowing more and more and more and loudly is they're going deaf. So when they start to lose that sense of their hearing, they will meow louder because they have to meow louder to hear themselves, and they're not sure, what we're hearing either. I mean, meows are really geared to people. So are we able to hear their greeting or their request, so they'll keep meowing loudly. If it is something just like the cat is going deaf, there's a lot you can do to provide other ways for your cats to see things or to know what's going on. So first we sort of want to rule out if that's what it truly is, and then we can set up some accommodations for the cat.
Gotcha. Okay, dog question for you, Terry. Our standard poodle, 5-year-old, barks ferociously when someone walks by on the street in front of our house. There's no sidewalk. Is he scared? Is he being protective? What's he doing?
One reason that we have dogs historically for the last thousands of years is that they protect us and they protect our territory. That's one reason we let them live with us. So it's not uncommon for dogs to decide which is their territory. And when they bark at something or somebody outside, think about the consequences of that. They learn that it makes them go away. My dog barks at the mail carrier every day. The consequence of that is that the mail carrier leaves the front porch. And so if you don't want your dog to do that, again, prevent behavior that you don't like. Keep your dog's attention inside with lots of food toys, things like that, and give them a new habit, because that's the dog's hobby right now.
Got it. All right, we have a lot of folks on the phones and a lot of texts that we were not able to get to. So sadly, we are out of time, so I hope we can have you back here again, the two of you, to answer more questions. Thanks to everybody who's called and texted, and our thanks to the founder and director of the behavior department at MSPCA, Angel Terri Bright, founder of the nonprofit All Cats All the Time, Rachel Geller. Thank you both.
Thank you, Edwin. See you soon.
All right, that about does it for us for now. Coming up on the Culture Show, don't go anywhere. Jared is live from New York City today. He's joined by legendary composer and lyricist Mark Shaman on his new memoir, Nevermind the Happy, Showbiz Stories from a Sore Winner. The Curiosity Desk is produced by Aidan Connolly, Rachel Armani, Olivia Corcio, Hannah Loss, and Nicole Garcia. Thanks to our steady hands, Patty Daniels and Jamie Bologna. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Special thanks today to Andrew Massawa and Cullen Cockerell. We will be right back here in 23 short hours on GBH 89.7 and streaming on YouTube. If you can't wait that long, check out the podcast version of our show. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Safety Insurance, offering auto insurance policies designed to help for when the worst happens. You can ask an independent agent about safety insurance. Safety Insurance will help you manage life's storms. Get an inside look at the remarkable on-screen cinematic career of Dame Judi Dench through some of her most iconic roles in several beloved films. Don't miss Discovering Judi Dench tonight at 9 on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Culture Show News Desk, I'm Henry Santoro. The music world this week is mourning the death of the great tenor saxophonist Sonny Rollins. Sonny Rollins, born in Harlem, 1930, grew up surrounded by many of the jazz greats. He found his groove in the 1950s and was on the cutting edge of the jazz music scene from that point on, and he was easily recognizable by his mohawk haircut that he wore decades before Taxi Driver's Travis Bickle and the Clash's Joe Strummer took it mainstream. Sonny Rollins was an improv master and often referred to his improvisation playing as his best playing.
Say, for instance, if I'm doing a song and I practice it, I learn the lyrics, everything that is possible to learn about the physical piece of the composition or whatever it is. Then when I go on the concert stage, I forget it completely. I mean, I don't want to think about it. then I try to let the music play me.
He even sat in with the Rolling Stones on Waiting for a Friend. Decades, he recorded more than 60 albums as a band leader. May he rest in rhythm. And thanks to our colleagues at NPR for some of the audio for this report. Also, just a program note, GBH Jazz host Al Davis will pay tribute to Sonny Rollins this Sunday night at 9 on 89.7 FM and on the GBH app. That's this edition of the GBH News Weekly Wednesday Afternoon Culture Cast. I'm Henry Santoro. Next up, The Culture Show with my friend and yours, Jared Bowen, live from New York City.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, live from New York, Marc Shaiman, the award-winning composer and lyricist whose work runs from When Harry Met Sally and Sleepless in Seattle to Hairspray, Smash, and Mary Poppins Returns, joins us with his new memoir, Never Mind the Happy. Before the Tonys, the Oscars, and the Broadway openings, he was a teenager haunting community theaters, a young musician swept into Bette Midler's world, and creating a career that would move through the devastation of AIDS, the machinery of Hollywood, and the bruising and thrilling business of making musicals. Then artist Steve Locke joins us with his first career monograph, I Said What I Said, a new book featuring 3 decades of work in painting, sculpture, and public art. From portraiture to public memory, Locke's work confronts race, desire, and history, and asks what America is willing to look at. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. You're listening to The Culture Show live from New York, and we're listening to Can't Stop the Beat.
You can't stop an avalanche as it races down the hill. You can try to stop the seasons, girl, but you know you never will. And you can try to stop my dancing feet, but I just cannot stand still. 'Cause the world keeps spinning round and round, and my heart's keeping time to the speed of sound. I was lost till I heard the drums, then I found my way.
That, of course, is from the Broadway cast recording of Hairspray, composed by Marc Shaiman, who co-wrote the lyrics with his longtime collaborator Scott Whitman. Hairspray won the 2003 Tony Award for Best Original Score. Shaiman has an expansive musical vocabulary, from Broadway brass to Hollywood romance to campy comedy. You've heard it across a career that includes films from When Harry Met Sally to South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. Musicals from Hairspray to Some Like It Hot. Television from Smash to the Academy Awards. In his new memoir, Never Mind the Happy, Showbiz Stories from a Sore Winner, Shaiman writes about how it all happened. He was a child with prowess at the piano who, when he was still just a teenager, found himself working and living with his idol, Bette Midler. From there came decades of famous collaborators, bruising setbacks, and loads of glitz. His is a candid account of the work, relationships, and backstage chaos that all comprise life in showbiz. He'll appear with Broadway in Worcester on June 9th for an evening with Marc Shaiman, a night of stories, conversation, and live music. I'm moderating that conversation, by the way. He joins me now in Manhattan. Today and tomorrow, we're live from New York on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. Marc Shaiman, thank you so much for being here with us today. Congratulations on the book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I want...
Thank you for having a studio that's literally across the street from my apartment. I mean, 10 paces.
And which we had no idea. I had no idea until you just
I
told
had
me
no
that.
idea this place was here. How fantastic.
And then I asked you, you're the best restaurant in your neighborhood, and...
I said the Corner Bodega. Me and my husband, we were so low class. We actually go and we actually get like the hot food in the back of the deli. Like, don't ask me that question.
To avoid restaurants in New York. That's the longtime New Yorkers' advice.
We're just lazy.
Well, let me start with the way you start this book. I also happen to be a huge Bette Midler fan. You dedicate this book to her. You say she's your favorite performer in the world. You've had this decades-long collaboration. As you look back at your career, as you've documented in this book, what does your partnership with her mean to all of it?
Well, I mean, first of all, the thing that's just so amazing, and I hope for people reading the book, is that just the magic of the fact that I wanted to do this thing, work with her someday. And I was fantasizing that when I was 15 and 16. And then it all happened. And somehow as I called the chapter, Manifesting Midler. I mean, somehow this amazing thing happened where this dream came true right away. And I've had just a lifetime of these kind of experiences. But with her, that was truly special. Like, you couldn't have written it. I did write it, but you couldn't have written it. You wouldn't believe it if someone wrote this in a book or you saw it in a movie, how every piece fell together.
Well, I wonder what it was like we all have this experience, having the records or CDs, whatever era you grew up in, listening to somebody you so idolize, somebody who speaks to you so musically and artistically, and then you're feet away from them, hearing them sing. What is that experience? And do you still have it?
Oh yeah, it's fabulous. I mean, I write one incident I talk about in the book was the first time I played for her on the Tonight Show. She said, you know, I'd love to sing Skylark, which she hadn't sung in years. It's on her second album. And that album starts with 2 cuts that are just piano voice. No other no orchestration, anything. Just her, Barry Manilow on piano. Very specific, wonderful piano playing and arrangements and chords that as a kid, I mean, when I was, I guess it's 14 or 13, whatever, I would play along with the record and learn like those special kind of Laura Nero kind of chords that he was playing. And so anyway, she said, let's do Skylark. She said, but I don't remember how I sang that song. So she went to her record collection and pulled down her own record and put it on the record player. And the two of us were singing along and playing along with the record. And my brain was exploding because I said, just like 5 years ago, I was doing this in my little room in New Jersey. And now I'm doing it again, only she's here also singing along with the record. Anyway, it's phenomenal. I mean, she's just her way of putting emotion over, whether it's funny or heartbreaking. She's unparalleled at that.
Well, then you begin to help shape her career too, because you were the one who brought her Wind Beneath My Wings.
Yes, I earned my wings, no pun intended, in her world when I brought that song to beaches. I had heard it in a club in New York because it had been around. It had even been a country western hit, but we didn't know that. She never would have covered it if she really actually knew how much it had been already recorded. I even had a Gladys Knight and the Pips version. You can imagine how great that is. That I had in my car when I first went to L.A., and I would hear it that way. Anyway, it was just so perfect for beaches. And there was a spot in the movie that they wanted to get an original song written for because an original song can get nominated for an Oscar. And it was my job to help choose the songs for the movie. And then I screwed myself out of getting that slot I wanted to write the song. I said, but here's a perfect template. Here, it should be kind of like this song that I heard once. And I played Wind With My Wings, and I turned around, and Bet and her producing partners and the director, they were all sitting there weeping. Oh. And that was that.
Well, in your words, as you say, you did screw yourself out of it because you're not an EGOT. That's the only one you're missing.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, you say you're the sore winner. That's the hilarious part of your title of your memoir.
Yeah, I was complaining to someone one day, and they said to me, Mark Shaman, you are a sore winner. And that stuck. So when we were trying to think of a subtitle that would sort of sum me up, I remembered that.
I have one more Bette Midler question. I swear we're not going to make this whole thing about her, but of course there's that great moment, May 21st, 1992, the penultimate Carson episode where she and Robin Williams are the final guests. And if anybody has not seen that, or hasn't seen it in a long time, they need to go back and watch. Let's play it first and then have you talk us through how that came together on the other side. But as Bette Midler's musical director, Mark Shaman, co-wrote, conceived, arranged, and played piano for her on Johnny Carson's penultimate show, here she is serenading Johnny with One for My Baby and One More. You are at the piano, the three of you, Carson, you, Bette Midler.
I don't know that they thought of it as that trio, but it was, and it was one of the greatest nights of my life, both, just show business wise and just life wise. The experience was just, and it's one of the few things I can listen to that or watch it and actually not like say, oh, why did I do that? Or this should have been like this. Or that one I can watch and go, that's kind of perfect. That just came out perfect. But it took a while to get there. But what an experience. That's a whole chapter in the book of just what it was to prepare it and get to it and almost lose it within the show when Bet is always second guessing everything. And the afternoon of the rehearsal, she said to the band, "What's Johnny's favorite song?" And they all said, "Here's That Rainy Day." And I could see the wheels turning in her, that she was always second guessing whether One for My Baby, One for the Road, whether she'd be able to perform it. It's such an iconic song that Frank Sinatra and Fred Astaire had already owned this song. So I knew that she was, maybe I should sing something else. And then she started singing Here's That Rainy Day with Johnny Carson.
I remember.
Right before we were about to cut to commercial and then come back to do One for My Baby. And I'm backstage going, "Oh, Bet, oh no, oh no, they're going to come back and they're going to say, 'Sorry, we ran out of time. We're going to cut the ballad.'" And they already sang a ballad. Suddenly, Bet is singing with Johnny Carson, and he's singing with her sincerely and sweetly and in tune. And meanwhile, so I'm having this schizophrenic moment where I'm like, "Oh no, Bet, don't spoil our perfectly planned moment." But then I'm an accompanist. I hear people singing and no one's playing for them. So I start playing. Yeah. So I'm playing under Here's That Rainy Day while I'm arguing, like with myself, "Stop playing. Don't encourage them. You must play. You must play." And then luckily that was a magical moment unto itself. And then luckily they did not say, "Okay, we're cutting the last song." And then that last song happened. And she won an Emmy Award for singing on The Tonight Show.
Well, here's what goes to you, too, that you have your brain, you hold all of this music. So it seems like you've always been able to do this. Whenever somebody calls upon you, you can do it. And you've always had this ability, even without really growing up with music in your house.
It's true. I don't know how I learned every song. I often wonder if my husband in the car, when I'm singing along with every song, how did I learn all that? Well, now I'm 66. I'm old enough to have learned every song. But I kind of knew them all at a very early age. I just have like a phonographic memory. And I am good at that, at figuring out what song fits a moment. And I enjoy that as much as writing a song. I enjoy equally, really, as much. I mean, Wind Beneath My Wings, to be the person that brought that song into the mix, and then it turned into what it's turned into. I didn't write the song. I don't take credit for writing the song, although I did rewrite one lyric in the song for the movie. That is now the accepted version of the song. But
what was the lyric?
It used to be a beautiful I never once heard you complain, but because of the illness of Barbara Hershey's character, I said, "Bet, what if it was a beautiful smile to hide the pain?" So that's the way it is now.
Yeah.
I don't get no royalties, but it's okay. I mean, that song means so much to millions of generations of people that have had that song sung at graduations and funerals and weddings and everything in between. And I take great pride in having, been part of that. And then One for My Baby that night on Johnny Carson. I mean, anyway, blah, 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 blah.
Well, are you somebody who always has music running through you, too, even when you're not listening?
Especially when I'm trying to sleep.
You can't turn it off.
No, and it's not like I'm Mozart. Believe me, I don't say this with like, "Well, yes, I'll have such music." Sometimes it's just something I heard I was watching a TV show, and some song was on it, and then it's in my head, and I can't turn it off. It's like this record that just keeps playing over and over again.
Well, then how do you write with that ongoing music? Or does it become your own music in your head?
Well, then at least there's a good purpose to it. Hopefully it's during the day, and I'm supposed to be awake. And then it's good. It's like, okay, let me have it, wherever it's coming from. But yeah, when it's 2:30 in the morning, I tonight it might be, One for My Baby. Bet just turned 80, believe it or not. And I wrote special lyrics to One for My Baby to sing to her at her 80th birthday. And then that night, I had one of my insomnia moments where I just kept re-singing it in my head. Anyway, doctor, we can talk about this later.
This is NPR. This is where we get to go on NPR. This is the fun part of the job. All right, well, we're going to continue this conversation in just a minute. We have so much more to talk about, of course. I am speaking with legendary composer and lyricist Marc Shaiman about his new memoir, Never Mind the Happy, Showbiz Stories from a Sore Winner. He'll appear with Broadway in Worcester on June 9th for an evening with Marc Shaiman. Our conversation continues on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
In the occupied West Bank, Israeli settlers are forcing Palestinian farmers from land their families have cultivated for generations.
They damage our life completely.
I'm Scott Detrow. We hear the story of one Palestinian pushed from his land and the Israeli settlers now swimming in its waters. On the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Native Plant Trust. More than 125 years of commitment to protecting New England's native plants. More information about how natives can support the web of life at nativeplanttrust.org. And the Lyric Stage, presenting Something Rotten, a side-splitting mashup of 16th century Shakespeare and 21st century musical theater, now through June 7th at Lyric Stage Boston. Tickets at lyricstage.com.
And White Flower Farm, offering home gardeners a wide selection of plants, tools, and supplies for the growing season ahead. More at whiteflowerfarm.com.
Here, local isn't a buzzword, it's our beat. We're on the ground, in your neighborhood, covering the issues that impact you. GBH News 89.7, gbhnews.org, and streaming on the GBH app.
I'm Jared Bowen. Welcome back to The Culture Show on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. We're live from New York today and tomorrow. I'm joined by Emmy, Grammy, and Tony-winning composer and lyricist Marc Shaiman. He may be a Jersey kid by birth, but his show business education was pure New York. Piano gigs, cabaret rooms, and a chance connection that placed him in a dream dynamic with the divine Miss M. Bette Midler. From there, his career has moved between Hollywood scores and Broadway musicals. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about his new memoir, Never Mind the Happy, Showbiz Stories from a Sore Winner. He'll also appear with Broadway in Boston, or Broadway in Worcester, that is, on June 9th for an evening with Marc Shaiman, a night of stories, conversation, and live music. I happen to be hosting that conversation. We'll try not to cover all the same ground. There's so much to talk to you about. But clearly, in reading the book, I see how important film is to you and what it meant to you when you moved into that world. Let's play a little bit from When Harry Met Sally. Here's It Had to Be You from the soundtrack to When Harry Met Sally. It features standards performed by Harry Connick Jr. with a big band and orchestra you were having. What did it mean for you to step into film? We actually just had a Wednesday watch party, which we do regularly on the show, where we have listeners call in, and so many people called about that film, in part because of the musical association.
Yeah, it was a fabulous way to step into the world of the movies, most of all because of the relationship with Rob Reiner. And with Harry Connick Jr. and all of it, just all these dreams coming true, getting to, I had finally in my 20s really fell into learning about the artistry of Frank Sinatra and Nelson Riddle, the great, arranger orchestrators that work with Frank Sinatra. So to have this gig where I got to live out that kind of, fantasy of doing that style of arrangements, orchestrations, and to have basically like Frank Sinatra reborn and Harry Connick, that voice, I listening to that just now, I'm reminded of that bizarre introduction that's so. People are like, what is going on? In my mind, when I was doing it, I was thinking of the video. And it was sort of like if you've seen the movie A Star is Born with Judy Garland, in her Born in the Trunk sequence, there's this very stylized set where she's going from agent to agent, running down a hallway and opening doors. But it's all very, very stylized, like in an MGM style, even though that movie was Warner Brothers. Anyway, in my mind, that opening was going to be Harry, like in an MGM movie, searching for the girl, opening doors and then playing the piano in that one little section in the middle. And then finally, bum, 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 there she is. And I explained this to them and they were like, no, it's just going to be Harry on the streets of Los Angeles on the top of an apartment building. And I was like, but that was my dream. No one's going to understand why the orchestra is playing this bizarre Gershwin-esque movie, and cinematic intro. Anyway, you happen to play that, so that's why I'm thinking of that.
But they had faith in you, obviously, because it made its way into the film, and now it's seminal.
Yeah, I mean, that was just like we were talking before. I didn't write It Had to Be You. It was written over 100 years ago. But that was so wonderful when I went on tour with Harry Connick Jr. after that record exploded. And it was so wonderful to see like college-age kids filling auditoriums and not arenas, but, big theaters, loving this music that they had not been exposed to. That was very enriching to get to be a part of turning a generation onto these fantastic songs.
Well, and you also do this through the musical. So let's talk about the original material you've written as well, Hairspray, and then your nod to Some Like It Hot. You're carrying these musical traditions in. What has that opportunity been as you can compare that with the composing for film?
It's like apples and oranges, but they both taste fantastic. Yeah, getting to write stuff and especially with the case of Hairspray, knowing that like 25 years in now, we're about to have our 25th anniversary. Oh my God. Because I can remember it all like yesterday. What a cliche. But I truly can. I cannot believe it's been 25 years. I mean, once again, you keep hearing me talk about dreams come true, but that, to write a Broadway musical, that was the big dream for both Scott and I. And Scott at the Tony, when we won the Tony, he said he grew up in Nanuet, New York, which is like 45 minutes upstate. And he said there was a sign that said 45 minutes to Broadway. But he says in the Tony speech, he said he didn't realize it was going to be 45 years to Broadway. Anyway, it took us to be in our 40s to finally get the chance to write a Broadway musical. And then for it to be such an explosion of joy and color in all meanings of the word, once again, a dream come true, and then to be rewarded for it and have it continue. We're going to go out to see it in St. Louis at the Muni in just a few weeks, which is like this huge theater that seats like 10,000 people or something, some crazy number. So we want to see it in that circumstance.
Do you have a sense of why? Well, I want to go back in what you were creating there, because it's one thing to go from John Waters' film to suddenly you're in the Midwest filling a huge barn theater that people have grown to love, and then now, as you see, are passing down generation to generation as they introduce their kids to it.
Yeah, when you say that, I know it used to be people my age who were enjoying what I was getting to work on. And then it was like, oh yeah, you're my parents' favorite movie. Now it's like, oh, my grandmother had that record. I don't mind that at all, though, by the way. At these book events I've been doing, I get that the nostalgia is a big part of it. And I don't mind that at all. Call me a dinosaur or whatever. I'm very happy and proud that I've been able to get these opportunities to work on things that meant a lot to whatever generation. And what was your question?
Well,
I keep not answering your questions.
And I was not calling you old. If you were suggesting I was not. My question was just about what you were trying to evoke. I mean, we all know what John Waters' sensibility is when you looked at that film and where you took it in the musical.
Yeah, well, obviously that movie was quite different from most John Waters movies. I would love to have written a musical to Female Trouble or Pink Flamingos or Desperate Living, which those movies are really bizarre and dark. And we were first online always to see them, as we were for Hairspray. But who knew that John Waters would create this mainstream story that has such meaning still to it? And we were able to blow it up for the musical. We had to create so much more plot. The movie has around 20 minutes of plot and then just another 45 minutes or so of just John Waters style humor. And we had to create more plot and create a whole evening. And, I've often mentioned that Scott and I would sometimes be backstage and we would peek through the curtain on the side during You Can't Stop the Beat at the end. And the entire audience, whether they were 7 years old or 97 years old, all had the same look on their face. Their bodies were all leaning forward. It was such unity. And Lord knows, remember Unity? Remember what that was like?
I do.
Well, anyway, we got a big dose of that every night. That was a joy.
So this is why I love your book, because there's so many random encounters too. As you say, you can manifest this. Just think forward. But your friendship with Shirley MacLaine,
I know.
that was so you just see her on the beach and suddenly you're friends with Shirley MacLaine.
I didn't have any time to take a vacation. I've been saying that now for a long time. So when it was time to score the movie of Hairspray, which amazingly we got to work on the movie of our musical, which doesn't always happen, and then I was doing the underscore and all the, fulling up. Anyway, I was working on the movie Hairspray, and instead of a vacation, I rented a house in Malibu. I thought at least I'll be at the beach and I'll be away from my house, and it worked out really well. It did feel like a vacation while I was working. And then every morning, Shirley MacLaine would walk by with her dog. So finally I said, hey, Shirley MacLaine, I scored your last movie that Rob Reiner made. What was it called? I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, I said, I scored your last movie. Oh, Rumor Has It was called. And I'm in here. If you ever want to see what it's like to see John Travolta playing a woman, singing and dancing and playing a woman, I didn't say anything more. She ran into my home studio that was in there and never left for weeks upon weeks. She ate everything in my refrigerator. She opened the freezer. There were some White Castle hamburgers in there, which she devoured.
So you can't tell the good restaurants in Malibu either.
No, I don't know. And then at that one point, I said, I have to go to New York for like 10 days. She said, good, because they're doing construction outside my window, and I'm going to stay in your house. Okay. All right. So it is, if you hear the rumor that Shirley MacLaine and I shared a bed, it is true.
Okay. Do you still stay in touch?
I've seen her now and then. But these people that come and go in your life. And I'm sure I'll see her in the next lifetime.
Yeah. That's a good one. So is this the point where I should probably tell you that I've seen you naked?
This is the Martin Short show?
I did, yeah. I saw the Martin Short show.
Well, you saw me partially naked.
It's enough to say pretty naked.
What do you call full backle? What's the opposite of frontal?
Yeah. I think you
yes,
nailed it.
I because Marty, I had to play Marty in a hospital bed because he was doing Jiminy Glick, coming to visit his friend Martin Short, who has been struck by lightning. You have to have seen the show to understand this plot.
Yeah, we should explain. This is the Broadway show, Martin Short, Fame Becomes Me.
Yes. So I became the body in the hospital bed as Martin Short. And then he dies and goes off to heaven and goes towards the light. So the idea was I would get up out of the hospital bed with the back open and go towards the light. And I found out that it's quite easy to be half naked in front of a Broadway audience as long as you don't have to see their horrified faces. Yeah. So yeah, 8 shows a week I showed my ass on Broadway.
But you were with Martin Short, who we read the friendship you two have is also extraordinary.
He's the greatest guy ever. Everyone's got to watch the documentary that's on right now because it so shows him for what he is. He's just, oh God, and he's had such tragedies, and it's just, what's happened just this year, unthinkable. But Scott often says, as opposed to the cliche of the clown that's laughing on the outside but crying on the inside. Yeah. Marty is laughing on the inside as well. He has this unbelievable way to find happiness and joy at all times, and is the most gossipy, vicious person you could ever imagine. So we have the best time. Anyway, yeah, he's the greatest guy ever. He's the greatest guy.
Well, you didn't write that in your book, that he's gossipy.
Well, I sort of imply that, we do enjoy our talks up there. We go up every summer to his house up in Canada. Anyway, yeah, he's just the greatest.
Well, I'm going to have to work when we're doing this together in Worcester. I'm going to have to work on getting some of that gossip out of you. It sounds like you have a lot.
My favorite story about how wonderful it is when Kathy Lee Gifford, he was on that, on the Today Show, the extra hour, and somehow she hadn't heard and didn't know that his wife had passed away around a year earlier. And she said to him, you and your wife have the all-time great showbiz marriage. How do you do it? And he managed to, for like 2 minutes, to not embarrass her, to find the tense to say, well, and he spoke about marriage and their communication. And he found a way on the spot on live television to not embarrass her and speak honestly about love and marriage. I mean, he's just elevated to the top of like a guru on top of a mountaintop. I mean, his level of humanness is just. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Well,
Sorry.
So elegant. Well, Mark Shaman, this has been so delightful.
We're done?
Yeah, we're done already, and then we get to do it all over again in Worcester. But I'll find all new questions. You saw my like.
I know. Did we get anywhere on your whole homework?
We maybe made a tenth of what I did. I always read the books.
Thank you for that.
Right, Mark Shaman, thank you so much. Mark Shaman's new memoir is Never Mind the Happy, Showbiz Stories from a Sore Winner. He'll appear at Broadway in Worcester on June 9th for an evening with Mark Shaman, a night of stories, conversation, and live music. Thank you again. Coming up, artist Steve Locke on his first ever monograph, surveying 30 years of painting, sculpture, and public art. He's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
In Ireland, a viral video shows a black man from Congo being killed by security guards as bystanders watched. Outrage and protests followed.
Are we so desensitized that, we can actually watch human beings live, being taken, and we can't say anything? Where is our humanity? What's happening?
A reckoning in Ireland next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Newport Mansions, presenting their Inside the Gilded Age tour, a guide-led tour of locations featured in HBO's Emmy-winning series, including The Breakers, The Elms, Marble House, and others. Tickets at newportmansions.org. And Boston Theater Company, presenting Road of Rainbows, a joyful Pride 5K run or walk during Pride weekend on June 6th on the Boston Common, with costumes, community, and celebration. bostontheater.org. And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, dedicated to helping individuals and businesses pursue their financial goals with a full range of banking and wealth management services. Learn more at cambridgetrust.com.
Stay connected to your community. Get breaking local news, in-depth stories, and stream GBH 89.7 all in one place. Download the GBH News app on the App Store or Google Play.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. We're live from New York today and tomorrow. Steve Locke is an artist whose work has long addressed racism, violence, and desire in painting, sculpture, and public art. His work elicits a long dialogue, a slow processing that what you see at first glance is actually the surface of layer upon layer of meaning. Also, he wields a technical mastery in portraiture, color, and drawing that continues to wow critics and curators. In Boston, where he was a longtime mass art faculty member, Locke proposed an auction block memorial for Faneuil Hall, confronting the slave trade wealth behind one of the city's most famous landmarks. At the Gardner Museum, 3 deliberate graves for Freddie turned public images of Freddie Gray into a spare act of mourning. At Mass MoCA, Locke titled his recent exhibition, The Fire Next Time, after James Baldwin's 1963 book, bringing Baldwin's warnings about racism in America into a show of drawings, sculpture, and paintings. That exhibition also led to Locke's first career monograph, Steve Locke, I Said What I Said, which documents decades of his work. It's out now. Steve Locke is a professor and MFA co-director of studio arts at Hunter College here in New York. Welcome back to The Culture Show. It's great to see you as always.
Jared, it is so good to see you. It's so good to have you in New York.
It's fun to be in New York. It's fun to do the show here.
It's nice, isn't it?
It is. And what a great time to be in New York with everything. Everything's just a hive, and the theater district is all excited, and all the shows are opening.
It's a really, really great time. Shows are turning over. The Tonys are about to happen. There's all this buzz. It's fun. And also Pova's coming to American Ballet Theater. I mean the New York City American Ballet Theater.
ABT, yeah.
Yeah, so it's exciting. It's a really exciting time.
How much do you absorb, especially when you're in the classroom, versus when you need and I know your studio isn't in the city, you have quiet countryside studio.
Yeah, up in Hudson Valley.
How do you balance that intake versus when you're working?
I don't think about myself that much. Like I really don't think about my own processes that much. I don't think of myself outside of myself. So I don't think, oh, now I'm absorbing information for the next project. I'm just living my life. I think the best part of being a teacher is that you're forced to think about someone other than yourself. I think about my students a lot, and I have wonderful students at Hunter. They've been a great inspiration to me with their courage and how hard they work, and some of them are graduating, and we just went through the whole season of thesis shows, and it was magnificent to see. So now that that's over, I can get up to my studio and start thinking about my work, and that's a wonderful feeling.
But I want to go back to something you just said. Now, Mark Shaman accused me of being a psychiatrist for a moment, but now I guess I'm doing it again. But when you said it's important to not think about yourself, why do you feel that way?
I think in the current moment, Jared, that self-obsession has become one of the most dangerous positions in American life. I never thought of myself as more important than anyone else. Never. I never thought I was special. I never thought I was gifted. I never thought any of those things. I grew up being told to work hard and do your best. You know, like John Wesley, do all you can for as many as you can, for as long as you can, for as well as you can. That's the way I was brought up. So I have almost like a Scotch guard against self-involvement because I think it's dangerous. I don't think that anyone's feelings are more important than mine. I don't think that my mental health or my self-care is more important than anyone else's. So in the current moment, where so many people are talking about their point of view and their position and my feelings and my this and my that, I really try very hard not to get involved in that. I try very hard to think of myself as, now I think of myself as a New Yorker among many, many, many other New Yorkers who are just trying to make it on this island every day. And it's a very nice, it's a nice feeling because, believe it or not, New Yorkers are the friendliest people in the world. They really are. When I first moved here, Jared, I'll tell you a really quick story. I live in Bed-Stuy. My apartment is in Bed-Stuy, and I love the neighborhood. I fell down the stairs of my brownstone, and I must have fallen down like maybe 25 stairs. I almost broke my neck, and I was unconscious.
Oh, my goodness.
And when I came to, I was surrounded by New Yorkers who didn't know me, who made sure my apartment was locked, picked up the food I had delivered and put it in my refrigerator, made sure I went to a good hospital for emergency care. I didn't know these people from a hole in the wall. Like, those are New Yorkers. That's what New Yorkers are like. And I'm just proud to be able to be accepted here. Yeah.
Well, how do you look then at the release of your first monograph and knowing that this book goes into people's homes and it will go into classrooms and people will be able to have their own intimate engagement with your work?
I never thought that so many people would work so hard on my behalf. It's a big thing. I have never had a monograph done before, like you were saying. It requires a huge amount of work. We had an incredible book designer named Amy Chen, wonderful permissions and editing services from Lydia Jasper at Mass Mocha, and of course the brilliant Evan Garza, who curated the show and did so much work to contextualize my practice over the past 30 years. That's a lot of talent being brought to bear on one's own behalf. And then incredible texts from Rob Storr, from Kimberly Pinder, from Craig Drennan, interview with Helen Molesworth, and this incredible essay by Karen Krasinski, who is a white woman who's a professor at UMass, who wrote about killers, which is probably the most difficult work in the show. But she took that on and took it on beautifully. So I was completely humbled to have so many people work so hard on my behalf. But also, I have to say, like, when I got the first proof of it, I slept with the book.
Did you?
Like, I cuddled up with it. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that this exists. And it's a heavy book. Like, it's over 200 pages. Like, if we were playing a game of Clue. It could be one of the murder weapons in the library, right? It's a real tome. And so I'm completely thrilled. I feel such a sense of relief that it's out in the world. I feel like all of the stuff that I went through to get to this point was preparation, right? It wasn't wasted time, that somebody was actually paying attention and that people were interested.
What is the experience? I often ask this of artists in their museum exhibitions, and I can ask the same for you. What is it to take that moment and look at this very wide span of your work? And your work has continued to evolve and evolve and evolve. You do not stay in the same space at all. So to really sit down, to sleep with it literally and ingest what you've done.
Mark Bradford, is really, really great American artist, always talks about keeping it moving, like keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it going forward. And I think that way as an artist. But when you have a project like this where you have to sit down with your own production and what you were like 30 years ago, what I was like when I was a kid in Boston in art school, and thinking about, all these places in Boston that don't exist anymore, like Gallery Oni and like Bernie Toll Gallery and the Starn Twins and Luther Price and all the people that I used to run with. It's an amazing thing to think back, because I'm still here. Like a lot of those people aren't with us anymore. But also I think the work has sustained me throughout all those times. And so I don't look back often. I'm someone who lives very much in the present, but like being forced to do it, I am just like, oh my God, like I did that, I did this, I did that. And other people have a response to it. It's not just me like falling in love with my own work. I love the things that I do. I'm not someone who, I enjoy my work, but other people are engaged with it. Other people think about it critically. Other people teach it. And that is something I never thought would happen. It's fantastic.
I have to ask you about I don't think we've ever talked about this in the years that we've spoken, but your portraiture.
Right.
Which we always, different things, do songs, like we were just talking again about with Marc Shaiman. They will hit you differently one day. Maybe it's 10 years since you've heard the song and it hits differently. Suddenly I saw your portraiture and I kept going back to, that's the beauty of a book. You can go back to it over and over again. You can do that in a museum, but you can't take it home with you. How do you describe how you capture people? Because you do it in such a visceral way, especially with this, we're separating out your drawings, but with your color, it's fabulous.
Well, I think that I went to Massachusetts College of Art and Design, and I had a really intense education. I had a classical education in portraiture. I had wonderful teachers like Donna Keegan, who taught me how to draw from life. She taught me everything. And once I had that skill set, I was able to apply it, right? And here's the thing about painting, and especially in the time that I came of age as an artist in the teeth of the AIDS epidemic. And there was a tremendous erasure of people like me, people who were friends, people who were lovers. All these people were gone. And I was trying to explain to one of my students, like, do you remember the first person you ever kissed? Do you remember all the people you've kissed? And I said to him, the majority of the people I kissed are dead, the overwhelming majority of them. So having that and knowing that people don't last, but art does, is one of the things that informs my work as someone who works with portraiture specifically in the human body. Because I have a very good memory for faces. Part of that is my training, and part of that is just a gift. But I think that with the portraiture, I think about color in terms of the sensation of being with someone. I say this to people all the time, right? You're at a party, right? And you're like really in love with somebody. They could be on the other side of the room and you know exactly where they are because the space between you is so narrow. And by the same token, you could be sitting right next to someone you hate and the space between you feels infinite. And I think that color can describe that. That's one of the few things in art that actually allows you to have an emotional response before you have a visual understanding of what you're looking at.
And by the way, if people are just tuning in, I'm speaking with Steve Locke, the artist, whose first career monograph titled Steve Locke, I Said What I Said, which documents decades of his work, is out now. When we see the couples in your paintings as part of desire, how much psychology are you putting into those paintings? Into those individuals, I should say.
Well, I don't know. I have my own stories about what's going on with the people I'm painting. I don't know if that's what's actually happening, right? I afford myself the license of making an image of people. I sit in train stations and cafes and stuff like that. I draw people obsessively, and just the little moments, little interstitial moments between people, I try to capture them. And when you're painting them, the painting starts to tell you what the painting is about. Like there's no other way to explain it. Like you want to put something in one part of the painting and the painting decides, no, it has to be over here. And so when that happens, I start to understand that the painting is telling me about the relationship between these two people in the picture. It really has little to do with me at that point. It has more to do with letting the material communicate what the emotional relationship is. And some people think, oh, those guys are in love, or those guys are about to get into a fight, or those guys are like sizing each other up. And it's like, well, yeah, it's all of that. It's none of that. It's all of that. I have my own thoughts about it. But like I said, I'm not going to be here at some point, and you're just going to be left with this object. And so you have to make your own relationship to it. And if it's any good as an artwork, it will force you to make a relationship to it.
Do you think there is something to what makes, I think about this all the time, actually, not that I have any answers, but what makes artwork survive its artist? What makes something endure?
I think about this all the time because while you're here, you should see the Raphael show.
I saw it. I snuck down in April and I got to see it then at the Met.
Spectacular. Just spectacular. And some of those pictures have been doing what they've been doing for almost 1,000 years, right? And so I don't know if I knew what it was, I'd be able to do it all the time, right? But I do know that when I'm working in my studio and the painting actually forces me out of it, where I'm no longer the maker of the work, where I just become the spectator, I become the viewer. That's when I know it's finished. And I think that with every great artwork, even like something as cliche as the Mona Lisa, when you're in the room alone with that thing, it does what it was doing when it was first painted, right? Time just sort of stops, right? And it's kind of incredible. When you go to the Metropolitan, like, I was looking at the Madame X that's in the Metropolitan, the Sergeant.
The Sergeant, yeah.
Like, I was like, geez. Like,
this is why I love our conversations. Although when I went to see the Raphael show, I didn't have time to go see her. That was the first time. But I usually will not leave that museum without seeing that painting.
It is one of the most compelling images of feminine power. You can't articulate how radical it still feels after all this time. And it still does. It's doing what it was doing when it was unveiled. And Sargent had to repaint her dress strap because everyone was in such a to-do about it, right? But that's how you know it's good, because it's still doing what it was doing when it was originally made.
What did you love about the Raphael show?
I loved seeing all of the Madonna of tenderness paintings. First of all, because I have such a profound relationship with the Gardner Museum. And Mrs. Gardner collected a lot of images of mothers and children. That was one of her particular focuses as a collector. But seeing and I was talking to Lisa Yaskovich about this, seeing the way that Raphael paints the space in between the mother and the child, and it's like, it's this beautiful, soft sort of concatenation of color that goes from like this brilliant blue to this ghostly purple. And in some ways, it's talking about the distance in between a mother and a child. But it's spectacular. I took like 30 pictures. You're in trouble at the museum when the guards tell you to back up from the painting. Like they tell me that all the time. I'm like, no, but I'm a professional, really. Let me get close to the picture. but I have like 30 photographs of just the hands and the space in between the mother and the child, the cheeks almost touching. It's spectacular.
That's what captured me too, is the skin. It's good. We did not come on today to talk about Raphael. We're supposed to be talking about you. See, you're successful.
Aha.
All is revealed about your skill. I want to go back to what you mentioned, though, about AIDS and the AIDS crisis.
Mm-hmm.
How profoundly would you say that changed your life? And when did it change? When did you begin to register and really process the magnitude of loss?
Well, you know, I came out really young. I was 16, 17 years old when I came out. My sexual life was tied up in my youth and in Boston. And, you know, the first people I fell in love with, you know, and seeing them get sick, it was just such a shock. Because youth is wasted on the young. It's absolutely true. But to be 17 years old and thinking, wait a minute, what do you mean he's dead? Like, he had a head cold. Like, what happened, right? And we didn't know. That was the thing that I don't think people can understand. We didn't know what was happening. And no one cared to tell us. And so gay men had to start organizing to figure out their own health care. Lesbians started going into, like, licensed practical nursing and hospice care because no one would take care. They wouldn't bury us, Jared. Like, they were burning people's bodies because they didn't know what to do with them. So I don't think I ever got over that as part of my own understanding of what it means to be a gay person in the world. And, you know, I've always known that the dominant culture hates us, just like the dominant culture in this country hates Black people. They hate them. And so much of the work in The Fire Next Time was about that. It was about, like, the prison that whiteness has created for itself, where you sacrifice your own humanity just so you can feel like you're better than someone else, right? I pity people who make that choice. And people make that choice every day. You know it and I do it. We see it all the time. People choose whiteness, they choose heteronormativity over their own humanity, over their own children.
That's a strong reaction, pity. Why pity?
Because I know the problem's not me. Like, I'm not the problem here. Like, I'm fine. Like, I walk my dog, I pick up my dog's crap. Like, I'm a good person, right? I'm not doing anything to anyone. I'm just simply existing. And the level of rage that Black normalcy brings out in people in this country is one of the reasons why I wanted to do the show at Massapoca the way I did it. There's 30 drawings in that show from Killers, #Killers, a project of white people who've chosen to commit violence against Black people. And there's 30 drawings in the show. There's 70 that I've done. My goal was to get to 100, and I couldn't finish the project. I just couldn't do any more of them.
Because of spending time with those people.
Yeah, and it's portraiture, you know, it's like, it's a direct visual engagement. It's not an easy thing to do. People think that it's easy to draw someone from life or to replicate someone, but you have to stare into someone's face and try to do justice to their likeness, you know, and not make a caricature, because that's easy. Ooh, I can make a scary drawing of an evil white person. That's easy. Why don't I make a drawing of Dylan Roof and show his Cupid's bow mouth and his, like, square jaw? And that's someone's kid. Yeah.
We have to leave it there because we're out of time, but I don't want to leave it there.
Oh my God, Jared!
I know.
You just got to New York.
I know. You always carry a sketchbook?
Yes, I do.
So
yes, I do.
On your way home today, you'll be thinking and maybe sketching, and
I will sketch you because you refuse to age.
Yeah.
And it is really making me angry.
In this studio, there's really good lighting that makes it look that way.
No lighting. You have to start aging. Because, I've always suspected that you were Black. Yeah. I've always suspected it, but I'm really starting to believe that it's true.
All right, well, I'm not going to walk out onto the street with you when you see me in daylight. I'm going to leave it there. Steve Locke, always great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. Enjoy New York.
Thank you. And thank Steve Locke again is an artist whose first career monograph titled Steve Locke, I Said What I Said, which documents decades of his work, is out now. He is also a professor and MFA co-director of studio arts at Hunter College here in New York. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow for artist Derek Adams on his first museum survey, now on view at the ICA, and Tony Award-nominated singer Melissa Arrico on her cabaret show Back to Barbara, as in Streisand, with Billy Stritch. We really want to thank Digital Island for being our home headquarters in New York today. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
GBH's All Things Considered is coming up this afternoon at 4, with Marketplace at 6:30. But first, get a global view of the news with The World. Up next, here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Central Square Theater, presenting The Mystery of Irma Vep, A Penny Dreadful, Charles Ludlam's subversive and camp spoof of Gothic